Welcome to the Ultimate Modern Horizons 3 Commander Set Review.
I'm Mia, and I changed the sign today.
I'm BZ. I like my toast with very, very light butter. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. Maybe you've heard of them. They make Magic the Gathering.
They make such amazing Magic cards. We are so excited to be talking about MH3 today. Thank you so much, Wizards. We really appreciate it.
This video would not exist without Wizards of the Coast, which is super, super awesome. We also have other supporters of the channel like Card Kingdom, which is a place you can go to buy singles, doubles, triples, boxes, sealed product, whatever you need.
If you want to check out some amazing cards, go there, support the channel, check us out, use the link below. There's also going to be a Moxfield ad somewhere in the video. You can't guess where it is, you know you're a liar. You get it.
You get the whole drill. And Dragon Shield, they have the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you want to buy sleeves straight from the source, go to the link in the description, use code
NERDS.
And that actually saves you 5% of your real money tax dollars on the sleeves that you were to purchase. So this video is going to be very fun. It is the Ultimate Commander set review of MH3 for a reason, because we have every single rare and mythic, and we're going to plug them in to a tier list. And that does mean that we need to get a little bit smaller, and I need to grab my computer. So we're going to do the move, the shrinky move. And my computer is right here, as it turns out. So this is our tier list. As you can see, it is very, very large. We have every single rare and mythic from Modern Horizons 3 on here, and we're going to be talking about all of them in the scope of the 99, putting them inside your commander deck. So how good are they in the 99? And we have 6 tiers here. S tier means this card is a staple in archetypes. Some decks are just going to need to play it. It's going to be super, super strong. A's are going to be very, very good. You're going to play it a lot of the time. It's really not that hard to put A's in your deck. They're very, very strong. B's, I feel like B's are more of, they are good. This is where some of your very specific cards fall, where they're really good in a certain deck, but they're not like busted all around. C's are totally middle of the road. Fair, absolutely playable, 100% playable. And D's, also playable, but the difference between S's and D's as we scale down is you need more of an excuse, more of a reason, a strong reason to play a D than you would like an A. And finally, we have Poop tier. These are cards that we are basically never going to recommend putting in commander decks ever. That does not mean they're unplayable, but I will never recommend it, and they're only playable in very, very, very niche cases. We know commander, everything's playable in some commander deck, but poop cards you can mostly avoid.
I'm really excited to talk about this. We have been doing so many pack wars, and there have been so many bombs in the rare and mythic slot. What's the first one that we have?
First one is Disa the Restless. She is making Tarmogoyf tokens when you hit, and if your Lurgoyfs get put into the graveyard from anywhere but the battlefield, then you just get them right back into play. This is a really cool deck. I know the precon was very interesting, but in the 99, I'm not 100% sure where you put this. Maybe in like a deck that wants to deal combat damage a lot, because you do get like 5/6s when you hit.
That is a very beefy amount for hitting, especially if you're sneaking in with just like a little poke of trample or something.
Yeah, this is the first one, so we're setting the tone for the whole thing. I feel like Disa is not poop. You could put this in a Jund deck.
I feel like C or D is like about C- is where my brain's saying.
Yeah, I think we can start out Disa and D. We can feel free to move these as we go along.
Yeah,
well.
we will. This is our benchmark.
Yeah, this one I have a feeling might end up in the poop tier because it's more of a commander. It's Oma, Restless Queen of Vesuva. It puts everything counters on creatures and lands, and they get types. I just don't know where you would put this. Maybe the Shapeshifter deck that's 5 colors, but it's only when you can only cast it once, it gets a lot worse.
Yeah, it's just, this is strong as a commander, but if your deck is already revolving around a certain type of creature, for instance, or a certain type of land, then having this as just one of your card slots, I don't see as being that powerful.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and throw it in poop. It's just not a command. It's not a 99.
It's card. A great commander, not a great commander deck card.
Right, it doesn't go in your commander decks really. Next we have Satya. This is the energy maker. Now this actually does probably go in most energy decks that are Jeskai, because it gives you a payoff for energy. It also keeps giving you energy. So it doesn't need to be the commander. You could have like Dr. Madison Lee as the commander.
Yeah, but I also think that energy is one of those types of mechanics where it's not like it can just like slip in just anywhere. It's not like Proliferate where it's like, oh, poison and 1/1 counters and just counters in general. This is like you need specifically energy, and that's pretty hard to come by.
It's not the same as like a graveyard. If this was a graveyard commander, it would go in so much. I think it's probably also a D. We don't have to spend a ton of time on these commanders because they're mostly not going to be super sought after in the 99. They're mostly made to be the commander. Next up is Ulalek, and it copies Eldrazi spells and Eldrazi cast triggers. Kind of a confusing card, but I think, again, we can probably just say great for an Eldrazi deck. If you're not playing that, don't even look at this card.
I think it might even be poop. I mean, I'm just saying because if you have an Eldrazi deck, its color identity is like, it's devoid, right? But you have to have 5 colors in the casting cost, right? So you can't put it in your Kozilek deck, right?
That's true. It's going to be hard to play this. The same is true of Azask, who is next. And I think we can also stick it in poop just because Azask and Ululek, I think, are the only 5-color Eldrazi commanders. So they have to basically only be played in the 99 of each other. And that's just not really...
That's hyper-specific.
Same with Kaith, famed Mechanist. This has Fabricate. It gives your other dudes Fabricate. And you can populate or proliferate. Now, the fact that it does that, I think, opens it up a little bit.
I think that's fun. I think that's a really cool way to take Jeskai and make it not so, like, samesies, you know?
Yeah, I feel like this could go in, like, a tokens deck, but it could also go in... Like, I mean, I guess you could, in a poison deck, you could do that. But, you know, making weird tokens, even taking care of, like, artifacts with the Fabricate when you keep making servos. So I feel like this is the first one that's going to get in, like, middle of the road. It feels like a C.
Yeah, I think so. I really do like Populate a lot. I think we were talking in our, like, guild deck or guild video that it was like, hey, I wish there was more Populate, but it seems to be like very white or Selesnya restrictive, and bringing that out into the Jeskai like color identity is a really fun way to take it.
Yeah, we're gonna jump over to Korum, the Undertaker. He gets +X/+O, where X is the greatest power among creatures in all graveyards. So I would say that's probably, if you've got things going on, it's probably at least +6. And then when he attacks, each player mills a card, and during each of your turns, you can play a land from or cast a spell from among cards milled by anyone, which is kind of neat. This is also very specific because if he's not your commander, which he can't be because we're talking about the 99, then he isn't going to deal commander damage.
Yeah, so, and that's usually what you're looking for. And you don't usually just want one big beater without commander damage or without anything on it, like, you know, lifelink or poison. Or,
yeah, I think we'll just stick it in poop. This is not the cards that people are excited about for the 99. People will build a Kalem deck or a Korum deck. That's totally fine. If you have a deck that Korum's going to the 99 of, let me know.
Tell us. I'm excited to see all of these decks too.
Yeah, Jyoti Mog Ancient. This one is very playable because it makes a 1/1 forest for each time you've cast your commander. So if you've got like partner commanders, this could be a good card to actually just play. And then your land creatures get pumped, but this is already like a weird ramp spell, and it's only blue-green. Unlike the rest of these cards, they're mostly like 3 and 5 colors. It's hard to play those in a deck because it's already so restricted. But blue-green, this could be in any land deck.
I think there's a lot of support for this, especially with things like Awaken the Woods and things that where you can just make like land creature tokens. I think that this is pretty playable in your landfall/land creature deck.
I kind of like it at like B because if you've got 2 commanders, this card already seems worth it. If you've cast, you draw this in the late game, you've cast both of those commanders twice, you just get 4 lands.
Yeah, and it's what, 4 mana in Simic colors? That can come down really, really early, especially if your commanders are pretty cheap.
Yeah, exactly. So next we got Eldrazi Confluence. We're going to move away from the commanders. Now these are only cards that you could ever play in the 99. This is choose 3. You can choose the same mode more than once. Something gets +3/-3. You flicker something tapped, or you get a 1/1 Scion. It's 4 mana instant. The fact that this is double colorless in the cost is very restrictive, and it almost feels like it's so restrictive that this is basically just going to be played in Eldrazi decks.
I mean, this is Eldrazi Bay, right? This is like the Warping Whale. Like, can you technically play it anywhere? I guess, especially if you have a lot of the pain lands and stuff that can make colorless. But are you going to? For 4 mana? Probably not.
Yeah, I think double colorless is really hard. Single colorless is doable, and I've played Eldrazi Displacer, Warping Whale, in decks, but double colorless, I think we're in D.
It's just tough to do. And then saving up 4 mana for an instant, rough.
Right. It at least goes somewhere. But okay, so this is the next one that I'm interested more in. Eldritch Immunity gives your stuff protection from colors, and you can overload it. This only has 1 colorless pip, so this is a card that I think is very castable in some decks.
And what's the overload cost on that?
4 and a colorless.
I think that's pretty doable, especially it's not just for the Eldrazi deck, but I think that this could find homes in other places, though I'm not sure if I would put it in a ton of other places.
Yeah, so I think my mind goes to White Weenie, but then of course you're playing like a Chroma's Will instead, or maybe in addition to. Maybe this goes in some kind of red deck where you want to just sneak in damage. Red doesn't really have ways to protect its creatures, so maybe that would make sense.
Maybe, yeah, especially because it's like you're not playing in green or blue. And in White Weenie, I was also thinking of like clever concealment and stuff that just phases out your team. So
this is more. I'm thinking about this on offense.
Okay, I was thinking about more on defense.
On defense, you're paying 1 mana to save 1 thing. On offense, you're making your creatures unblockable.
Okay. That's definitely a good way to think about it.
I feel like we could throw it in C.
It's versatile.
It seems like it's
I like
usable.
it in some decks.
Yeah, Inversion Behemoth, another double colorless, and it switches the power and toughness of creatures. So you can kill your opponent's walls if they have 0 power and some number of toughness. You switch them and they die. This doesn't seem like a card that anyone really is interested in. I don't even know if the Eldrazi deck is interested in this. This might be a poop.
Is it just opponents?
It's anything. You can switch the power and toughness of any number of creatures, but like, what does that get you?
I mean, I don't know. I know some people like the big butts deck, but
Yeah, but then your creatures have 0 power, so if you switch them, they just die.
yeah, that's rough.
Like, you can switch your opponent's walls and kill them.
But how many people are playing walls usually?
Not
Probably
enough
not
for me
that
to
many.
put this card in my deck.
Yeah, I think poop is about
Yeah,
right
this
for
is like one of the hardest cards to use that I've seen. Selective Obliteration, 2 colorless. Each player chooses a color, then exile each permanent unless it's colorless, or it's only the color its controller chose.
I actually like this more than I really thought upon first read, because isn't this like pretty good against things that have a lot of multicolored things?
All multicolored creatures will die and be exiled no matter what.
I'm a big fan of that then especially in the like monocolored decks, it might be worth it.
If you're monocolor, see, that's the thing.
But it's also so selective, it's hard because
the thing is that it's not a very castable card. You have to like really, to cast double colorless, you really have to build around it. But monocolored probably is the color where you have the most colorless utility lands. Right
yeah,
around,
because you're playing in like your reliquary towers.
You can afford it.
Yeah, your like rogues passages. You know, you get it.
Yeah, so I think maybe mono green might be interested in this card.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about Sylvala with this card.
Green
but,
has
like,
no board wipes.
Yeah.
Green has Eldrazi or Azuri's Predation and basically nothing else. So maybe this is a mono green card or a colorless card. It's very, very specific.
Maybe. I don't think it's great, but I do think it's playable more than I did upon first read.
Yeah, I feel like it's also a D.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
was like,
a-
I don't. This isn't going
It's
in
like top
C
of
or
D.
above.
It's like top of D right now. Let's go to Spawn Bed Protector next. 7 mana, 6/8, and you can return Eldrazi's at your end step to make some 2 spawns.
I mean, this is a specific Eldrazi card.
It's just another card. It's like if you're playing Eldrazi,
It's good.
you might be interested. You might not. It actually is not a guarantee whether you want this or not. So it feels like bottom of D or maybe even poop tier. What do you think?
That's sad because it's like if you're in a Kindred deck and this is a Kindred card and you're like, I'm not even sure if I'll want that. And especially since most of the Eldrazi cards are colorless, it's like, I don't even know if I can find that in my OG Kozilek deck.
Yeah,
you know?
your 7-drop slot is pretty taxed in Eldrazi. So
They're expensive.
I'll put it at bottom of D, and we'll go to Twins of Discord. It's an 8/6, and when you attack, you can stop creatures of either odd or even mana value from blocking, and your colorless creatures have Bloodthirst too. So again, only Eldrazi or only like artifact creatures. It does still work with that.
If you can make enough like constructs and stuff, this could be pretty good because they'll be entering with those extra counters, and all you have to do is deal damage to your opponents, which in stompy decks might not be that bad.
Yeah, I'm not even thinking constructs. I'm just thinking like servos and thopters and things that are really, really small that just suddenly get bigger now. Constructs will be very big in these decks, I think. And next we're gonna go to. Oh wait, we gotta actually rank this guy. I feel like this
I think C's fine.
This is not just an Eldrazi card. There's a different avenues to go with it. Let's go to Ulamog's Dreadsire. 10 mana, 10/10, Vigilance Ward, sack a permanent, and then taps to just poop out a 10/10. Is this like a tapper card, or is this only an Eldrazi card? Because this seems like a card I would never put in my Eldrazi deck.
Yeah, I don't know. The only place I could see it is like if you can make a lot of mana real fast and you have like a Seedborn Muse type deck where it's just uncapping every time. And that's so specific, right? Because if I have a Seedborn Muse in my deck, I usually want to do things with my commander and not just have a random 10/10 hanging around.
It's like the top end, and you have to. It's the just you wait till I untap, and then it's two.
Just you wait to
Then it's 10 mana for 2 10/10s, but I think Desolation Twin is terrible. I would never recommend anyone play that card either. So I think we're in poop tier. I don't
want to be playing this.
I think we just are. I just don't think it really does anything. Angelic Aberration, 6 mana 4/4, devoid Flying Vigilance. Now, when it enters, you can sack any number of creatures with base power or toughness 1 or less. So really small boys. They're thinking probably Eldrazi Spawns or Scions or whatever, and then you get that many 4/4s. This not just an Eldrazi card.
I like this card.
It doesn't really matter that it's Eldrazi, right? Like this isn't a colorless card. You can cast it with white mana. You can just throw it into your token deck, sack all your tokens, and get that many 4/4s. It's kind of cool.
I was like, mono white, sacrifice your little white weenie dudes, and then get 4/4s? That's kind of like build your own, what's the one where the tokens come in and you make angels?
I mean, yeah, Divine Visitation.
Yeah,
kind
it's
of.
build your own Divine Visitation. I think that's pretty interesting, though. I kind of like this.
This is cool. I think, I kind of just like this card too. So we're definitely above D. Are we in C tier? Or
I
are
think
we
we're in C. I think any white weenie deck could play this in theory and have a pretty good top end.
It's probably not the best top end in the world.
Well, I mean,
But it looks like a playable card. If it's like 6 mana, make 5 4/4s.
Yeah, I was like thinking about it. I was like, okay, 6 mana, you swing with all of your things, you get your combat triggers or whatever, and then you go, okay, and you play this on second main and you get a bunch of 4/4s.
Cash them in.
That's pretty nasty. I like that.
And it is worth noting the tokens have vigilance, so they attack pretty well. Next, Hourglass of the Lost. This card is confusing. It's 2 and a white for an artifact. You tap to add white, so it's a mana rock, and it puts a counter on it. And then you can tap and remove X counters from it to return each non-land permanent that costs X from your graveyard to the battlefield, only at sorcery speed. This is an interesting card. It was in the energy deck, and it seems bad there. But we're talking about 3 mana rock that you can just that puts counters on by itself. You don't have to choose between putting a counter or adding mana. It just does both. Then, if you've got a filled graveyard, you could just start returning stuff.
And this is either like an Orzhov small boy thing, or this is a very, very late game type thing.
Ooh, Shadowborn Apostle?
Yeah.
You return all the ones that cost 1?
Yeah, that's why I was thinking like Orzhov, like the 1 and 2 mana things. You put like 2 counters on this and do it a couple times, and then you're like, all right, well, all of the little guys are back.
I was ready to write this off, but it kind of seems decent to me.
It seems okay.
It seems like it might be a B. Where are you thinking?
B?
Yeah, I think we're maybe in B range.
I don't think it's a B, but maybe C.
Top of C?
Yeah, I think.
Let the record show, Mia is the one who downgraded me to C. So when you come back and this card's busted.
Busted?
Yeah, fight Mia. Busted.
I didn't even like bring it down that much. I probably was like, oh, B to C. It's not like I was like, put it in poop.
Yeah, hopefully we don't. Honestly, S tier's cool and all, but hopefully we don't see too many of those because like Soul Ring, Ristic Study,
Mana Crypt.
Those are the S tiers. I don't know if I want a ton of S tiers. Maybe we'll get 1 or 2. I think we will when we get going. But Localized Destruction is a board wipe for energy, and you can save some of your creatures based on the energy you pay. This really just seems like if you're playing energy, cool. It's one of many, 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 many board wipes you can play. It just feels like a D. Yeah, I don't think you're excited to play this.
Yeah, this is D or poop. I'm not putting this in any non-energy deck.
Yeah, it's definitely not that good. I mean, it does. Like, you get 1 energy. So I'm trying to think of what it does if you don't play energy. You get 1 single energy, then you can save creatures you control with power 1. They get indestructible, and then you destroy all creatures. It is also just 5 mana to destroy all creatures, but I would never recommend people play that.
Because then you're saying, why don't you just play Wrath instead? You're in white, and then it's like, well, am I playing Wrath of God? No.
Right, exactly. There's so many good whiteboard wipes that's just never going to crack it. Razorfield Ripper is an equipment, again, that cares about energy. It reconfigures, and it gives you an energy and then gives you X plus X plus X, where X is your energy count. This is just an obvious D, right?
Yeah, I was put it right next to the board wipe. It's about there.
This actually seems like a pretty. You know what? This seems pretty bad. I kind of want to just throw it in poop tier because this is not what energy decks want. They don't want a random dude that's an equipment.
Yeah, that's fair.
Forget it.
I'm happy to put it in poop tier.
Yeah, even if you have 10 energy, that means you're not spending energy and you give +10, +10. Do you have a trampler? Do you have a flyer? Do you have something to take advantage of that? I don't know.
I mean, everything in energy is basically Jeskai, right? So
yeah,
you might have flyers, but you're definitely not having too many tramplers.
Little bizarre. But we go to a really sick one. One of the biggest boys that's not an Eldrazi in the set. It's Salvation Colossus, 8 mana, 9/9. Flying Vigilance Trample. When you attack, your dudes get +2/+2 and indestructible. And you can unearth for 8 energy, but let's pretend that doesn't exist. Because at its baseline, this is just a big artifact creature that you reanimate sometimes or cast as a top end. It's pretty cool.
I think this could be in like B tier. I don't mean to skip right to the rankings, but since this gives things plus like a stat boost and indestructible, I think that this can go in a lot of just white creature-based combat decks. That's an extra ton of damage, and your creatures don't die in combat. That's what a lot of creature decks want.
It looks great for white weenie. You can play this at the top end, or just an artifact deck where you discard it and you trash for treasure it. Maybe Osgear, where you're like, okay, cool, exile this from my graveyard, make 2 of them, and it stacks. And the thing I like about this is it's not when this attacks; it's when you attack. So the ability has haste. It works right away.
I like this. I think that this can go higher up. I think B is fine for this.
I think B, and maybe we'll revisit because it could be like bottom of A quality.
I think this has a lot of versatility because it's like you want to punch, you want a lot of creatures. Well, a lot of decks want that.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty fair thing to me. Oh, this next card is cool. I don't know how good it is, but I think it's very cool. Silverquill Lecturer gives your creatures demonstrate. I can copy my creatures to get a second one, but I just have to give one away to one of my opponents. And if I'm playing any sort of synergy deck at all, I can give it to the person who cares about it the least.
I want to put this in something. This seems really cool. I love weird creatures. I wish that this was like an like more budgety and in Sultai, so I could have put this in Yarok or something and gotten a ton of value.
You don't need that. No. I'm happy it's in white.
I like this card a lot. I think
it's really cool.
You just need creatures. You need creatures that do a bunch of stuff when they come in or die or whatever. And you need to just have enough like threat assessment to be like, okay, you can profit the least from it.
Yeah, I feel like this is another B card.
I could put this in B.
I also think that the Colossus is way better than this. Do you want to maybe bump it up to A for now?
Sure.
Let's try that as a tentative. We got a little staircase building.
I was like, we do have the power to move things.
We have full control over this entire tier list. And we have Aurora Shifter next. When it hits a player, you get that many energy. Okay. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can pay 2 energy. And when you do, it becomes a copy of a creature, except it has. When it deals damage, you get that many energy damage to a player. This seems like a cheap energy card. And it seems like maybe one of the better ones. Cloning is nice. It can give you a lot of energy if you pick something evasive. It's just not it's not busted. I think it's probably C though.
Yeah, it's like it feels like a curve filler for your energy deck, but not much more than that, because I'm never like, ooh, I need a blue 2-drop in any of my other decks. I would love to put this in.
Yeah, this is like a clone, but you have to pay energy,
and that's so hard to get if you're not in energy.
This is not a card for non-energy decks, but I think in energy decks you want stuff to do early.
Yeah,
so
I'm happy with this.
It's totally fine.
Energy decks.
Right, in energy decks. All right, Benthic Anomaly, this one's really cool. This is the one that when you cast it, you choose 3 creatures, and it's a copy of one of them with the power of the other ones. You just make like this huge monster.
How much mana is this?
It's a 7 mana, 7/8.
I like this. That's fun because you get the ETV triggers. You get some die triggers if you pick the right thing, and then you just get a giant thing of this. The only thing I would be worried about is it target?
It chooses. It's not even target.
That's amazing.
They can't even really respond.
I like that even more now.
Yeah, because it's not like if they have a sack outlet, they'd have to respond to me casting this card, and there's no way they're going to do that.
Yeah, because it's like no choice of like, oh, well, maybe you'll pick my thing, maybe not.
It doesn't matter. Even if they know what you're going to pick, there's no reason they would sacrifice it just so you can't make a token of it.
Yeah, I like this card.
Yeah, this card looks awesome, and it makes a really weird token, so you can populate the thing. If you make a 20/20 indestructible whatever, dude, you can start populating them, and it's not like they enter with counters. It just says its toughness is equal to the total toughness, its power is equal to the total power.
So are you putting this in Brutaclad?
Oh, man, I totally could. That is awesome. I really want to put this thing in A.
I don't think it's an A, but I definitely could see it in B.
Yeah, I really want to, though. Man, this card is awesome. This card is so cool. I didn't even think about that. Copy land is next. You copy a land. It's a 3-mana enchantment that copies a land. Now, when I was first
Field of the Dead.
When I was first reading this card, I thought it was insane. I was like, they just printed blue ramp. This is a problem. But the fix for that is that the land is also an enchantment, so it's not like an invincible immune land. It will get swept up by some board wipes or Druid of Purification sometimes. However, this is still 3-mana blue ramp. It's just vulnerable ramp.
I think it really depends on the quality of lands that you're running in your deck. I mean, who wouldn't love a second Field of the Dead, right?
Does it, though? Would you play 3-mana Rampant Growth in blue? Like, blue doesn't get that. So it's like, who even cares what land it is?
I mean,
it enters untapped if it's a basic land.
Maybe. I don't know. I think I would just be so nervous about it getting swept up. It's like, ooh, well, I spent 3 mana on like a basic that I can
it's like a signet, right?
I guess.
I feel like
I still don't want to. I still am not itching to put this in a lot of my decks, though.
I don't know. This might be a super staple. I'm trying to talk through this because you would put a signet in a blue deck, and you'd have to. A signet is way more likely to get blown up through something random than like an enchantment, right? Like artifacts are slightly more vulnerable than enchantments.
I think maybe slightly, yeah. So because red has like.
This is the same math as Rampant Growth, because Rampant Growth is 2 mana and it puts a land into play tapped, so you have like you've spent 2. This is 3 mana, but whatever land is probably untapped, so then you have an extra 1, and you've still kind of spent 2 on it. I don't know.
Well,
this might be dope.
Okay, I'm a little wary about this, but
what do you worry about?
I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot of mana to be putting into like a copy land enchantment when it's like.
It's not an aura. It's just like this thing is a land, but it's an enchantment. This card kind of looks really good to me. Okay. It's also when you ramp, you're not taking a forest. You're taking the best land in play.
Okay. Oh, well, because you can target your opponent.
It's any land, yeah. If they have a field,
okay, that's a little bit different. I think that makes it better for me. Do you want to put this in like B or A?
I want to put this in A.
I don't think this is S.
I'm pretty confident this is an A level card.
Okay.
I guess I'm glad that the land is an enchantment because I think honestly it would be kind of silly if it wasn't.
I think it would
be
be
an auto include.
I think it would be a pure S if it was not an enchantment.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think. I was like, does it the fact that it's an enchantment mean that this card's not an auto include? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I kind of want to put this in a lot of text now.
I want to try it out. I will reserve judgment, but I can live with it in A right now.
I'm glad we talked through that. I feel like I'm pretty happy with it at A slot. Next, March from Veil's Veil. Choose a non-basic land type. Each land you control of that type becomes a copy of a creature you control, and it gains haste. And this has flashback in case the first one isn't enough. So the joke is...
What, you have to pick like desert
you
or
pick
something?
desert, and then all of your deserts turn into your
Guys?
best creature. So it's like an overrun.
But where am I playing a ton of deserts where I also have access to blue?
I mean, you have a couple options. Deserts, caves, and those are really the only ones that you're gonna have a bunch of.
Yeah, but
I don't know what this card is.
Because like when I think deserts, I'm thinking Hazoret, I'm thinking Yuma, and which can't run blue. And when I'm thinking caves, I don't think of anybody.
There's no caves deck, yeah.
Yeah, so
I just don't know what you're supposed to do.
I
It
think
feels
this
like
is
it goes
this
in
is like D or poop.
I feel like it goes in the Omo deck and nothing else.
Yeah.
So maybe that's bottom of D, but we're scraping it.
I think that might.
Yeah,
be
maybe right
poop.
here.
It might be top of poop.
Top of poop. Yeah, I just don't. Even if you're a desert deck, it doesn't mean you want this card. You have to be a desert deck that has at least one good non-legendary creature to sort of like replicate, and that is your win con, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this because I can't even
miss.
think of a desert deck that runs blue.
That's fair. That's honestly fair. Wonderscape Sage returns lands to your owner's hand to draw a card, then discard unless the land had a non-basic land type. So you tap, return the desert, and draw a card.
Okay, well, non-basic land type, which makes it a little bit. I mean,
there's really only like cave, Urzas, Tron lands, deserts. There's not a ton of other ones that are relevant.
well, I mean, maybe you just want to loot away a bunch of lands or something, especially if you have extra lands that you're putting down. You return it, you like draw and discard if you care about putting things in the graveyard, maybe.
You know what? For what it's worth, glad we didn't miss this. I remembered Gates, also a very popular one. So there are plenty of blue Gates decks. I still don't think that you want the Veil's Veil sorcery to make your Gates into stuff.
Because like if you're doing Gates, you're probably doing like Maze's End, right?
Probably you definitely are.
Yeah. So if you're doing, it's like I don't want to swing with my 9 Gates and be afraid of like, oh no, like return all non-creatures or return all creatures to their opponent's hand. You know, like,
so let's just stick it in. I feel like this is another D card.
Okay.
And
I think it has use, but it's so niche that it's not like
Yeah. All right. Barrow Goyf. We are going to treat the Goyfs very. They're not going to be the highest ratings. Don't get too excited. Death Touch, Lifelink. It's got Goyf text, and when it hits, you can mill that many cards to put a creature from among them into your hand. You don't have to be playing any of these in a Goyf deck. Any of the Goyfs, they kind of just function by themselves. But I'm like a 5/6 Death Touch, Lifelink for 3. That's about what I expect this to be. And if it hits, you draw a card. It's like fine.
It's not bad.
I don't know where you would play it, like Life Gain.
It's like it has Death Touch, which is kind of nice, but like it doesn't have Trample, so it's like okay, well I have a 1/1, I'll just keep.
But like the bigger creatures get, the less relevant Death Touch is. I feel like this is maybe the bottom of C, where if somebody showed me this in their deck, I wouldn't be like upset at them, but I would never recommend it.
I wouldn't question why, but it's like Nighthawk Scavenger, where it's like I'm not mad at it, but also you probably could be playing better in my opinion.
Sometimes it feels a little weird. All right, Bismuth or Mind Render, another Eldrazi. When it deals combat damage, that player exiles cards from their deck till they hit a spell. You can cast the spell by paying life equal to its mana value. And honestly, I think this, even though it has menace, I think this is basically poop tier. You have to be in some kind of weird steal your spells deck, and even then, I just don't think this is that great.
Yeah, because like I don't want to be playing this in like the new Gonti, which is steal your spells, and you could be playing it there.
I just don't love it.
And then you're paying life. It's like I'm not a big fan, and also just hitting for 4 damage. It's like I don't know. Maybe it depends on what I have on top. If I know that.
But like, what if they just hit like a Birds of Paradise or something? There's still, even if you go through all the trouble to play it and hit, they can still whiff and hit something
It's a fun gamble card. It's not a fun like power card.
It's a fun card. It's not a good card.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where we're at. Mutated Cultist. When you cast a spell, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent or opponent. The next spell you cast costs less for each counter removed this way. Death Touch. I just don't know how I could ever recommend putting this card in your deck. It's a meta call, and I think meta calls just go in poop tier.
Yeah. Is this a battle card? Perhaps can you take counters off battles?
I guess.
If you're running a lot of battles, maybe.
No,
but
fair enough. You could do that. I still feel like this
it's
is
still not good.
Yeah. Removing poison is tempting, but well, actually, wait a minute. It's only
opponents,
yeah,
right?
you can't even do that. I don't know why removing experience counters. not enough people play experience counters for that to be relevant.
Yeah, that's such a meta call. Not a fan.
Let's go to this next card, which I think is interesting. This is to me is the test. Is Farewell busted, or do people just hate having their creatures exiled? We have Final Act. It's 6 mana. You choose one or more. Destroy all creatures, planeswalkers, battles, exile all graveyards, and each opponent loses all counters. I like that this is more of a chance for us to remove experience counters because this is tacked on for free. That last mode is completely free. We'd play the card without it, unlike the other card, which is entirely predicated on who has counters for it to be good. Final Act. Similarly to Farewell, all creatures will end up exiled and all graveyards will be gone.
I think this is very playable.
I think so too. I don't think it's the best black board wipe, but I do think people...
Exile in black, though? Mono black?
People don't want their stuff exiled. When you mess with their graveyard, they get really upset. And when you destroy all their creatures and then exile all their graveyard and their creatures that were destroyed, they're going to get upset. And I think this card might be good.
I think this is a good card. This is one of the only ways to exile in black, especially a mass exile. And I also think that this card is a little bit deceptive. You go, oh no, like... Is your stuff gonna... No, it says destroy your creatures. It's fine. And then you're like, well, psych. It resolves in order. Yeah, your stuff is getting destroyed and then exiled.
Yeah.
I think it's a deceptive card, but I like it. But I also like Farewell, so maybe I just have bad taste.
Let's put it in B. I feel like...
I think it's playable.
Yeah, I feel like the Silver Quill thing, we can move to the bottom of B, because it's like...
I think this is playable. I'm excited to see it in action.
I think so, too.
I'm going to get a copy and see how it runs.
I want to try it. So... Next up, we got red cards from the precons. Aether Refinery is a 6 mana thing that gives you double energy, and you can tap to get an energy, and then you can make a dude if you want. I think this is the most textbook, pretty good in energy, but not good anywhere else, so I feel like it's right at the bottom of C. Where like, yeah, energy decks want this, of course.
Yeah, I think this is good. I mean, you tap it, make 2 energy because it'll always be out, and then, yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Seems totally fair. Blaster Hulk, 8 mana, 8/8. It costs 1 less for each energy you've paid or lost this turn. Gee, I wonder where this goes. Haste, when it attacks, you get 2 energy, then you can pay 8 energy, and if you do, it deals 8 damage divided. Oh, look, an energy card. This one I think is worse.
Oh, it's worse.
So I might put it at the top of D-ish, maybe over here, but it's nothing special. I don't know. It's energy.
Seems fillery for
energy. They were a little tamer than I thought they would be with energy in this set, and I think that's totally fine because energy is a very strong mechanic in 1v1. Although these are commander cards, so I guess maybe I did expect them to be a little bit better. Maybe I did expect it. Okay, Filigree Racer. 4 mana gives you 4 energy, and when it attacks, you pay 2 energy, and you can get a jump start to an instant or sorcery in your graveyard. Like, what are these cards? Why are they so weird?
What are you aiming for? Like, what is your best case scenario of what you're gonna be jump starting?
Cast a removal spell. This is also a 5/5. A 5/5 that you crew it. You do have to like risk it because it attacks. If I'm an opponent, I'm going to be pretty keen on trying to kill it. It's just weird. I don't know why we're not just giving energy cards that just make energy and do stuff. We're giving you, like, here's a weird...
hoop to jump through, almost?
Here's a weird 8/8 for 8 that you probably don't want. Here's a vehicle that you probably don't want. I feel like this is also a D tier.
I feel like energy was loved too much when it came out, and then it was not loved enough during every other set that's come out recently.
I don't know. It feels like the Eldrazi. The Eldrazi deck had... since these are the precon cards. First half precon cards, then the MH3 cards. The Eldrazi deck had cards that are very usable outside of Eldrazi. Not all of them, but some of them. Energy, I'm not seeing any of that. Where it's like, if you don't play energy, you're not interested.
I feel like that's just the way with energy, though. I was thinking about, like, ooh, what can I name from Kaladesh and Aether Revolt, where I would play it in a normal deck today, and then I go, Aetherflux Reservoir.
Yeah, but that doesn't make energy.
Yep, and that's all I think about. So.
Okay, Hideous Taskmaster is next. This is another Eldrazi that you could play outside of Eldrazi. It gains control of a creature for each opponent, but then they get Haste, Trample, and Annihilator 1, and this thing has Haste, Trample, and Annihilator 1. So for 7 mana, you get 4 Annihilator 1s. You can send them
at the same person.
At the same person.
That's spicy. I like it, especially if you have some sort of sacrifice synergies. Dargo.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, this card looks sick. It also has 7 power. It triggers things that... Like, a lot of cards care about power, Rishkar's expertise, Garrick's uprisings and stuff.
He's beefy.
This is relevant.
I mean, he's a 7/2, but, like, that's the trade-off, right? And
this is a huge swing.
I think this is good. I think if you can sacrifice things in red, which is not the hardest, this is pretty good.
I think we've got another B on our hands, for sure.
I could see this being played in a fair amount of decks.
I think it looks kind of nasty. If you catch somebody off guard, they have 1 blocker, they play their commander or something, and they're winning, you're like, surprise, Annihilator 4, haste.
I'm happy to see Annihilator back, like, in full swing, quote unquote, especially since there are so many more sacrificable, is that a word, permanents than we had when Annihilator first came out, you know?
Everything's a treasure now.
Everything's like treasure, clue, or food, you know? We just have 10 Academy manufacturers around, so
Yeah.
I think we have the permanents to sacrifice.
All right, energy card, and I gotta tell you, I'm not excited.
Wow, really?
Overclocked Electromancer. Combat, you can pay 3 energy and put a counter on it. When it attacks, double its power. And when it deals combat damage to a creature, if it was excess damage, you get a bunch of extra energy. But this is it's not just energy. It's energy plus combat plus pumping this thing. I don't understand.
This is energy with extra steps.
Stop
I just
giving me extra
mentioned that,
steps.
and it's like, well, I want to go point A to point B because I'm not playing the best mechanic or just like synergy to begin with when in Commander. So it's like, why do I have to jump through all these hoops to get there when it's
Right.
not even like tier A or B or even C of like all the decks out there?
Like, you want this card, and you want the vehicle that cares about instants and sorceries in your graveyard, and you want the 1/3 clone that wants to deal combat damage to copy other creatures. Like, pick a lane, energy. Pick a lane. Pyroglyph. Pyroglyph is a Tarmogoyf, and when it or another Lurgoyf enters, you zap something equal to its power. So this does kind of kill something when it enters. You don't have to play other Lurgoyfs. If you have Changelings in your deck, that's a bonus. Think of it like a Flame Tongue Kavu, which I'm not. Maybe it's closer to Ravenous Chupacabra than it is Flame Tongue Kavu, but it's in that territory.
It seems fine. I feel like Lurgoyfs are the type where if they leaned into it hard enough, it would be the new Slivers, but
They didn't want to do that.
But I think this is fine, but
It's
we're
a
not
D.
playing Flame Tongue
It's a
Kavu.
D,
It's
yeah.
not. We're not excited about it. We're not putting it, and we're not like wasting a card slot on it.
Absolutely. Sawhorn Nemesis next. Choose a player, and if a source would hit the player, that deals double damage. So, but it's not just your stuff. I can choose Mia, and someone who attacks Mia who isn't me still does double damage.
I mean, we have 3 opponents, so I'd rather it be everyone else than just me, especially if I'm spending, 4 mana on it?
Yeah, it's a 4-mana 2/4, so not a creature that's going to rumble or block
Yeah,
particularly well.
and then if it's just like it gets swept up, I'm not playing this in anything. I'm not doing targeted things for the
Yeah.
most part in Commander, especially if it's all right. Go do work, guys. Like go beat them up for me.
I would prefer doubling all of my stuff to all of my opponents versus doubling everyone's stuff to one opponent. It's the same type of numbers, but I'd much rather be in control of it.
Yeah, this just doesn't feel good in my opinion. I don't want to put this in anything.
No, it could go along with there's a couple demons that say like whenever somebody loses life, the other person loses life. So
Yeah, that's like sort of Discord or
you
something.
could try that. I don't think that's really a deck. I will stick this in poop tier tentatively. I don't think it's very good, but I do think this next one is very good.
I like this one a lot.
You want to tell about it?
Siege Gang Lieutenant, it makes a couple bodies of goblins, and you can...
You can sack a goblin to ping something.
Yeah, I was like, I wanted the mana value on that.
Oh,
but
it's 4 mana, and it gives you 2 1/1 haste goblins every turn if you have your commander.
I think that's pretty easy. I'm going to put this in Perforos. I'm really excited.
I think this card is very good. This seems like one of the best cards from the precons. We're almost done with the cards from the precons, but this seems really strong. I think it's an A. I don't think it's an S because...
I don't think this goes in every deck, but if you care about things ETBing, if you care about amount of things dying, if you care about swingsies or the amount of creatures you have, and you're playing your commander at least a majority of the time, this is worth it.
This is one of those cards where it's not like Ristic Study where like you should put it in a deck or you need a reason not to play it, but it is a card that you could really put this in any red deck, and I wouldn't fault you for it because it's like, well, what are you trying to do? Well, I'm trying to play my commander, and then I'm trying to ...
Yeah.
It's like, well, you want your commander, so this makes a bunch of tokens. It feels really good.
I like the Lieutenant cycle. I'm happy to see it back. Perforos is very happy too.
Here, let's go. Siegeling number 1, Colossus number 3, and Copy Land is number 2 in our A
Sure.
slot. Next, we're going to attempt with Mayhem. You copy a spell. Then other people can copy the spell. And if they do, you copy the spell again that many times. I don't think this card really works. I would not be tempted by it if I was opponents. And I think there's some spells that, if they're really that juicy, you don't want to give them away.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like the tempting offers are always kind of a bust for me because in theory it's really good. It's like, ooh, but I could get 4 copies of it. And then it's like, well, I know the people I play against at least are often not going to be taking that offer.
Yeah, Attempts with Malice seems fun, but kind of bad. I think we're in D tier again.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, if your playgroup will take it, it's okay. And if your playgroup will not take it, it's a dead card.
All right, Chittering Dispatcher's next. It's a Myriad Eldrazi. When it leaves the battlefield, you get a 0/1 spawn. So if I attack with it, I get 2 tokens that are copies. They will die, whether they hit or not. That gives me 2 spawns every time it attacks, and then if this thing ever dies, at least you get something.
That's not bad. And then also, if you can flicker it or something, you might be able to get more.
True. If you flicker this for some reason, or you've got like shenanigans, or it gets flickered by someone else, yeah, you can get some spawns. I think like
I'm not excited to play it.
It's not an Eldrazi specific card. Maybe it's an okay enough token card, because the tokens from Myriad that it makes are itself tokens.
Okay.
Then they die into more tokens.
Okay.
Maybe it's just a lot of bodies entering that you can sacrifice or get value off
I think
of.
Myriad's just a cool mechanic overall. I'm happy to see it here, and I'm happy to see it actually having value.
I want to see it on aggressive bodies like this one. Let's put it in C somewhere.
Sure, bottom of C, I'd say, though.
Maybe
Middle bot.
you know what? I keep looking at this energy card. Let's just move this. Let's move the real energy card here, and let's move the Goyf above those bad energy cards.
I got you.
Okay, next up, it's Desert Warfare. This card's sick. When you sacrifice your cycle deserts, you get them back, and it makes tokens equal to the number of deserts you have if you have 5 or more. It's kind of like a win con or just an army in a can.
I like this, and it comes down pretty cheap, which is also something I really like. I think this has the potential to stick around for a while and just accrue value, and like a lot of people not noticing too much until it's too late.
Yeah, what I was going to say is this seems like it's very specific. You have to play deserts, obviously, but it's one of the better cards in that deck, and I think that's why I want to move this energy thing, the energy doubler, up, because it's only an ever goes energy, but it's one of the better energy cards. This feels like that. And
I
feel like
this is a B card?
It's B because it's one of the, you're just a staple. In every desert deck, you just play this card.
Okay.
No matter what, basically.
I'm just, this is just off topic, but I am confused as to why this wasn't in the Yuma precon.
The Yuma precon.
This would have been amazing in the Yuma precon.
Right, the Outlaws of Thunder Junction precon.
Because it was just a couple months ago.
They had a desert deck, and it just came out.
Yeah.
So why wasn't this there? And they were saving it. They were saving it for this. How about Polygoyf? You were just saying you like Myriad. What about Tarmogoyf? But it has Trample, and it has Myriad. Are we interested?
And
it's 3 mana. It's only 1 more mana than the regular boy.
I'm not mad at this. I might be interested. I'm liking the Myriad and green type deals that we're getting.
This card looks good to me. I think because of the green power matters stuff. If you've got Garrick's Uprising, you're making 2 4-power dudes, so you get to draw cards too.
I think it's just so easy to be like, okay, send this at just the person who's just playing a bunch of little 1/1s or whatever. It's not gonna die to them.
Glyphs are big.
And then the other 2 gigantic ones are just swinging elsewhere. It's I don't really care what happens to these, but with Trample, it's gonna chip in for at least a couple damage here and there.
It's not unreasonable for this thing to attack for 18. If somebody plays a fetch land, a Mishra's Bauble, a couple early cultivates, a creature dies, we're already talking 4 cards in the graveyard.
Yeah, and I could see this swinging for 18 on turn 3 or something, because it's if someone has what's it called? Just ramps turn 1 or something when Soul Ring, you put this down turn 2, and then turn 3 you're swinging for a ton of stuff.
Yeah, people have to have stuff in the graveyard. So maybe 4 is more reasonable, but even so, that's 3 4/5s attacking on turn 4.
Yeah. I think this is the better of the Goyfs that we've seen so far.
Still not a B, but I think we're towards top of C. It's a lot of power toughness. It really is. Rampant Frogantua. This wants you to think it's a lot of power and toughness. It's a 3/3 trample that gets +10/+10 for each player who has lost the game. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you can mill that many and put any number of lands from those milled into play tapped. That just seems like a trap. Players losing the game doesn't really happen that much.
One, I'm often trying to get everyone to lose the game all at once, and 2, I don't want to stick it on this frog. It's a 13/13 trample plus a little bit extra.
That's the best case. As a 3/3 trample.
It's a 3/3 trample. No, I'm not putting this in any deck.
The problem is, even as a 3/3 trample, if you hit somebody, you get maximum value, you mill 3, you want to hit lands. You might not even hit lands. You might just get 1, and that's not really worth it. I think we're in poop territory.
This is poop.
Poop tier. Sage of the Maze. It taps for 2 mana, and until end of turn, target land you control becomes an XX citizen with base power, with haste, in addition to other types, and X is twice the number of gates you control. So it's a gate card, but also the kicker is tap an untapped gate you control to untap this thing. So forget the XX. That's sometimes relevant. Maybe you don't want to risk your gates that much, but it taps for 2 mana. So, and now it basically says all your gates tap for 2 mana.
I mean, this is the one of the best gate cards I've seen ever.
looks pretty sick. Let's put it with all the other build-arounds right at the bottom of B tier. Its gate deck seems like they want that. I don't know about this one, though. Tarmogoyf Nest, Kindred Enchantment, Lurgoyf Aura. It makes the land poop out of Tarmogoyf for the cost of a Tarmogoyf. But your first Tarmogoyf costs 5.
We played Bootlegger Stash. That was the last thing I remember being like, you put this and all of your lands poop out stuff. It's like, well, I'm not going to be doing that, though. And I'm not going to be doing this either.
And now your land can't tap for mana because you want to make Tarmogoyfs and you feel pressured.
And
I'm going to stick this real low.
It's 3 mana for a Tarmogoyf plus the 2 mana investment. That's so bad.
I don't like it at all. But I do like aggressive Biomancy. This is the one that creates X clones of one of your creatures, and they all fight something.
I think that's pretty cool.
I think this card is good. 4 mana for a clone is pretty standard. The fight makes up for the fact that it's sorcery speed. A lot of clones can be instant speed now, or sometimes they're 3 mana, but the fight makes up for it. And you also have the scalability. I can pay 6 mana for 2, 8 mana for 3, 10 mana for 4, and that's starting to get real good.
And then also just green in general. There's so much like cost reduction if you have like, you know, all the Hydra stuff where it's like, this costs less because it has X in its thing.
Yeah, it has no build around requirements. So, you know, it's not as good as the desert card in the desert deck, or the energy doubler in the energy deck, or the gates card in the gates deck, but it's better across the board. I think it's still a B.
It's more versatile.
I think it's still a B. Probably like right around here.
I think I could see it in a B.
Okay, Bloodbraid Challenger. It's got haste, cascade, and you can escape it if you exile simply 3 other cards. I don't know how I feel. 5 mana cascades start to feel like a lot. You can start hitting cards that are not great.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're the one who plays Cascade here, so
yeah,
would you play this because you have a Teamer Cascade deck?
I have a Teamer Cascade deck, and I don't love it.
Then
I don't think this card is that exciting.
Then is this about a D tier? I could see people playing it in Cascade,
yeah,
but I don't think it's the best thing you could put in your Cascade deck.
It feels very mediocre. It's just not that exciting. I'll have you do some cards. We'll switch a little bit. I'll have you read some of the next cards.
This is Broodmate Tyrant. When it ETBs, you create a 5/5 dragon with flying, and it also has Encore for 8. It's a 5/5 itself, and it's 7 in Jund. What do you think about this?
So on its surface, I really, really, really don't want to pay 7 mana for this. 2 5/5s. But if I pay 8 mana, I get 3 5/5s with haste, and I get to keep 3 5/5s. That seems pretty cool. It's still mostly like power toughness. It doesn't have trample. Kind of a bummer. I think they could have given this trample easily. It doesn't feel like it's at the power level to be super impactful.
This feels like battle cruisery to me. It just feels okay. You know,
this would be a good Commander Legends draft card.
Yeah, or I feel like this would be great in a pre-con in 2016, maybe.
That sounds like a D card. I do like it. I like what they did with it. I like that it scales. He is breaking everything. What is the next card?
The next one is Exterminator Magmark. 4 mana for a 5/3 whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that only targets a single non-land permanent an opponent controls. If another opponent controls 1 or more non-land permanents that spell could target, choose one of those targets. Copy that spell. That copy targets the chosen permanent, and if you pay 1 in a black, you can regenerate it. That was a lot of words.
This is not elegantly worded, but if I want to recite it to you to make sure I got it, if I Doomblade one of your things, I can also Doomblade one thing from each other opponent.
Yes.
Okay.
It was just, if it could
target, then that works.
Yes. So I'm how much single target removal am I playing in Commander? I think that's
basically, this goes in a deck where you're playing a lot of it already.
And it has to be instant or sorcery based single target removal.
Okay, so it's even
so it's not like, it's not like where it's like ETBs like a Rex Sage or something.
I don't love it. I want to see where you want to put it.
I don't love this either. I don't care about the regenerate part. I'm not playing too much single target removal.
At least the regenerate means that this could be a linchpin of your strategy. At least it means it'll stay in play longer.
I would put in like D or something. I can't think of a deck where I would be playing this.
D sounds kind of right. Okay, so this next card, this is our chance to redeem ourselves because we read this card wrong on our last video.
Yes. This is Gluttonous Hellkite, XX, black, red, green for a 3/3. When you cast it, each player sacks X creatures, which is, double or half of what you paid into XX. And it ETBs with 2 1/1 counters on it for each creature sacked this way, and it has flying and trample. This thing is going to be very, very big because it's going to enter with bare minimum a bunch of 8 counters because everyone has to sack one if you're paying just 5 mana for it.
Right, yeah, like each
going to be
creature sacrificed
gigantic.
This way, yeah. So if everyone sacrifices a creature, you have a 5 mana 11/11. That's
with flying and trample. I think that's great.
We missed that. We were like, oh, it'll be a 5/5 because we thought it was just enters with 2 counters.
We can't count.
We thought it entered with 2 counters for each like X or something. But no, it's It's huge. This thing is a monster. 5 mana, 11/11 that has Fleshbag Marauder. Or if you scale it again, what is that? An extra 8? So it's like 19 or something?
Plus, it has trample. You know, I was going to say something along the lines of, I wish this was a commander, but no, I don't wish that this was a commander. I would have built this if this was a commander, but it would have been so, like,
so annoying.
It would have been a one-hit KO most of the time.
This card looks awesome. I kind of want to put it at A, maybe bottom of A, you think? The A squad is looking real good.
Yeah, this is good. Infested Thrynax, 3 black green for a 4/4 with flash. When this ETBs, until end of turn, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a number of 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens equal to that creature's power. This is pretty interesting because you do this in response to a board wipe, and then you create a ton of 1/1s if you have a bunch of like big power creatures.
The other thing you can do on offense is if you have a Blood Artist or something like that in play, you can sort of turn every power of creature you have into another drain. And this could be like a finisher. I just don't know if I'm like excited to play this. I think the offensive option sounds pretty good, but I don't really like the defensive option of this card. I probably wouldn't do that too much, so I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, I think the Blood Artist thing is pretty interesting. I do like that, or a Bastion or something.
It kind of feels like a fireball, but it doesn't really feel like a selfless spirit save your creatures from a board wipe thing. It feels like a fireball.
Maybe if you had this and you had like a meat hook lined up or something.
Well, same thing. Like any payoff for creatures dying turns it into a weird fireball thing. I think this card is not terrible. It does not excite me. I think it's like a C card.
I think the fact that it's also 5 mana doesn't really excite me.
Right, so it's harder to hold up. Yeah, maybe if it was like a 3 mana 2/2 or something.
That might be a little bit easier. Sphinx of the Revelation, 5 mana for a 4/5 flying lifelink. Whenever you gain life, you get that much energy. If you pay white, blue, blue, and tap it and you pay X energy, you draw X cards.
That seems okay. It doesn't. I was reading it initially like it was Sphinx's Rev, where you had to pay X mana, but it's X energy to draw X cards. This is a good energy card. It is not really a good anything else card. And well, sometimes too, you might look at the first line and go, well, I can't gain life. I'm not going to play this card. But it might be worth it just from the energy out, like the energy sink that it is.
You can gain life because it has lifelink. It's a 4/5.
Right, so it does fuel itself.
So like if you block some stuff or something,
Yeah.
or you could swing, you do get that much energy. I think that's not bad.
That's fair. Let's stick it in D tier. Maybe top of D tier, or maybe bottom of C. Sorry, I meant C tier.
Maybe, yeah, I was like, maybe the very bottom of C. I think it's very conditional. Conversion Apparatus, 3 mana. If you tap it, you get a colorless. If you pay 3 and tap it, you get 3 energy. And if you tap it and pay 3 energy, you get 3 mana in any combination of colors. So it is like a Black Lotus impression, and you don't want to be using that middle tier. But if you have a lot of energy, you could be getting some mana out of it.
How about Gilded Lotus? It's like a Gilded Lotus if you have enough energy, but it only costs, what, 3 mana? So you get a discount for that.
Yeah, and you could just tap it for a normal colorless if you need to as a mana rock.
Right, so not super thrilled, but I think this is another energy card where, like, thank you. This is a mana rock that I put in my deck to make mana because commander decks want to do that, and it also makes energy.
I'm putting it into any deck that cares about energy because I need mana to cast my spells.
Right, and it's not just like, hey, do you want a vehicle that Snapcaster mages something? It makes energy. It's like, what? Why? What do you want from me? I don't want that.
Yeah, it's not bad, I'd say, but obviously I'm not putting it in any non-energy deck. Stone Idol Generator, 5 mana. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you get energy. If you tap and pay 6 energy, you create a 6/12, but only at sorcery speed.
6 energy for a 6/12?
Yes. I mean, I guess if you're just overflowing with energy. The thing, the construct also has trample, though.
And it's a 5 mana thing. But but that initial burst of energy from when you attack with some tokens or something could be high.
Yeah, and it's never like it's not just saying like, you know, the first attack. It's like every attack. So if this sticks around, this could be a lot of energy if you're attacking with a bunch of little things.
Let's put it in the group of C cards where energy cards that you might actually play.
Yeah, 5 mana just seems like a lot. I completely get that.
Yeah, we got some lands, and then after this, we're going to get into some Eldrazi Titans for the main set. I'm excited.
Horizon of Progress. If you tap and pay 1, you could add 1 mana of any type of a land that you can control could produce. If you pay 3 and tap it, you could put a land from your hand onto the battlefield, and you could draw a card if you pay 1 and sack it.
So, kind of weird. It's like a terrain generator, but terrain generator's problem was that it only put basic lands out, so it warped your mana base a little bit. Yeah. This can just put anything out. Could be okay. I don't know where I would play this.
Honestly, I think I'm going to be playing this in a fair amount of decks. I love 3, 4, and 5 color decks. So I want as many of the lands that can produce as much as possible in there.
Oh,
And
you're
I also
right.
just love Horizon Canopy lands because it just acts as card draw later. I'm playing this in a lot of decks, and I would like to put this in A tier.
No, you're right. I was reading the middle text.
I don't
That's the flavor
care
text.
about. I was like, I don't care about the
That's
middle
the flavor
text.
text. Sometimes you'll do it, and it's nice to have, but it's a land that can sack to draw a card, which is fine. But really, it's like a reflecting pool.
I think
costs
that
a
this
life.
is a great card.
No, you're right. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, I do, and I
I was
explained
like,
it.
this
but
might even be. I'm not gonna say borderline S, but like this might be borderline S.
It feels
'Cause
S-y.
I think it can go in. I'm not gonna say any deck, but I think it could go in 70% of decks, and
just
it could
feels
be
kinda,
like, yep.
It feels kind of essy, right?
Yeah.
Even
I
if
think
you're a
S is
mono,
good for this.
even if you're a mono blue deck, you can still take advantage of the like, oh, I want to put lands out for some reason.
Or it's just like sack it, draw a card, which is what I love on the Horizon Canopy land cycle, anyways.
You know what? We got our first S, folks, and I didn't expect it because I was reading the middle text and going, oh.
Lazotep Quarry. This is a desert, and if you tap it, you could add colorless. If you tap it and sack a creature, add 1 mana of any color. If you pay X and 2 and tap it and sack a desert, exile target creature card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create a token of it, but it's a 4/4 black zombie, only at sorcery speed.
You can eternalize something.
Yes, I think this is pretty interesting. I think that having a sack outlet on a land is pretty cool.
It is nice, and it enters untapped. So maybe we have to let's play it safe again. High Market is a good card.
Yes.
I don't care that I gain a life. I care that it's a land that can sacrifice a creature. So maybe this is just great to have that upside of like I can turn this land into a resource later.
And Phyrexian Tower is pretty good.
These lands are looking nice.
This Phyrexian Tower is just like half the mana of it, but
I mean, Phyrexian Tower is I want what is after the colon. I don't care about what's after this colon. It's just a land. But I think that sacrifice a creature on a land is pretty sick, and I almost kind of want to put this in A tier now.
yeah, that's what I was also thinking. I was like, in CEDH anyways, you were thinking like, I need more sack outlets. Well, if you can have one on a land, that's like a pretty good way to...
The downside is colorless. Unlike the previous land, this doesn't produce any colors. So that's your only trade-off, which is fine. Let's go to Planar Nexus next.
Planar Nexus. It's every non-basic land type. It acts as a colorless, or if you pay 1, you could filter mana of any color into it.
Really, it's a land that counts as an extra Tron land. Well, it counts as all of Tron. It counts as
Deserts, gates, etc. I
Right.
mean, your gates cards are obviously going to want this because, you want 10, you want deserts.
I think this card just goes in a B then. It's like every Gates deck will play this card. Every Deserts deck might play this card just to have another version of that. But does it do a ton? Not really.
Yeah, it's not tutorable, but
It's
it
very
will
playable.
count, and it's very playable.
Very playable.
Sunken Palace. This is a cave. We're getting into the caves. ETB's tapped, but you could tap it for a blue, or if you pay 1 in a blue and tap it and exile 7 cards from your graveyard, you add blue, and when you spend this mana to cast a spell or activate an ability, you could copy it and choose new targets.
So
So
I
you
can,
want stuff in the graveyard.
I'll take this back. I can delve. I gotta read this thing. I can delve 7 and copy a spell.
Or ability,
Right. That's kind of cool.
but you need a spell or ability that you could pay mana into to copy because you need to be paying that singular blue
Yeah,
into
yeah.
something.
Not just it doesn't work on like a tap ability.
Yeah, yeah.
It enters tapped, so this is not a free roll. If it entered untapped, it would be insane. I think this is probably in a B.
Yeah.
This might be like B-ish.
I can see this in a fair amount. It's just like if you're playing a lot of like fall-off effects and that sort, and you can fill your graveyard.
Right.
Well, like
Self-mill.
yeah, if this was faster, I would say put it in Oscar.
Right, but yeah, the slowness
But the
of
tap
it.
is really what gets me.
Very fair card, but it seems good. I like that it's a nice utility, and I've never really seen those words on a card before. Exile 7 to like activate an ability. Like, okay.
I think that's pretty cool.
All right, next, Talon Gates. This is a weird card, and I think this card's worth money right now. When it enters, up to 1 target creature phases out. You can tap for colorless or filter into a color for 1 mana. Or you pay 4 and put it from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is a land that you want to bounce. So this maybe makes the stock of bounce lands go up because you bounce this and now you have the trick available. 4 mana is a lot, though.
True, but phasing out a creature, that's pretty interesting. Is there any ways we could like put lands down at instant speed? Can we make this
Yes,
like
there's plenty of ways to do that.
Well, that was more of like a rhetorical question.
Oh, okay. Like a walking atlas, yeah.
Yeah, so like I think that could go in those decks, and it could be like a combat trick too, or at least like a defensive type.
You can also just play this as a land. Like if you're a 1-color deck, you don't really care too much that it makes colorless, and it can filter into colors in an emergency. But if I just play this for, my land for turn, phase out my best creature, and then wipe the board, that also seems good.
I think this is not bad. I think that this could be played in like 3 color decks or less and like you really care about your commander or one creature in particular.
Or maybe you have a lot of board wipes too.
Or you care about bounces. I think that is a wide variety of decks. I think that could be B-ish.
B tier?
Yeah.
B tier seems fine. Next, Trench Post. It's a locust. Locusts are one of the types of lands that we don't talk about a lot. There's very few of them, but they are kind of busted in constructed Magic. This one says that a player mills a card for each locust you control. Kind of terrible.
How many locusts exist?
There's like 4 or 5.
Okay, get it out of here.
It matters when
Put
you
it
can
in
play
poop.
4 of them. But it matters when you can play 4 in a deck. And maybe this is a legacy card. I don't know.
But we're commander here.
Yeah, and so it's irrelevant. It seems terrible.
Poop.
It's absolute poop. I'm going to put it right at the bottom because I don't know why anyone would ever do that. But
Sounds
we're
good.
now into our Modern Horizons 3 main set cards. I think there's going to be a lot more S's and A's in this batch.
I'm excited.
Devourer of Destiny might not be one of them. It's 5 colorless colors for 6/6, and if it's in your opening hand, you can stack the first 4 cards of your deck, and then when you cast it, you do exile a permanent that's 1 or more colors. So it is removal, 2 for 1, and if it's in your opening hand, you can sort of scry.
Okay. I still don't want to be playing this in a ton of my decks though, but Eldrazi colorless, I probably
It's
will
in
be.
that meteor golem kind
It
of
seems
category.
fine.
Yeah,
It seems okay.
like a bottom of C.
Yeah.
Nothing too special, but I think that ability is really cool. All right, Echoes of Eternity. I don't really want to read this. It copies all your Eldrazi crap, okay? Whenever you do an Eldrazi thing, you cast a spell, get a trigger, this copies it. So it's an Eldrazi card. So it's just a B because it goes in the Eldrazi decks.
I was
that,
put
right?
it with the rest of the specialty
Put
cards.
it with the rest of the build-arounds. Okay, next up is Next up is, I gotta find it, Kozilek's Command. X colorless. You either get, you choose 2. So you get X 0/1 spawns. Someone scries X and draws a card. I don't know why that's target player. Exile a creature with mana value X or less, or exile X cards from graveyards. The cards from graveyards sucks. I think mostly this is create X spawns and draw a card, or create X spawns and then kill something, which is kind of okay.
I'm just not playing this in any non-colorless deck, and I don't think this is great in the average deck because no matter what you want to do, you can be doing it better if you have 1 or more colors to choose from.
But also most decks look at this and they go X colorless. I don't care what it does. I can't cast it, so let's just stick it right in the C range.
Yeah, Eldrazi deck's cool. Everything else, eh.
Right, exactly. So next up we are going to have Null Drifter. It's like Mull Drifter, but it's a 4/4 with Annihilator 1. There's not much difference. You can't flicker this. So if you cast it for 4 or for 3 and then flicker it, you don't get more cards, but the body itself is better. So maybe you do want to flicker it anyway, because now you have a 4/4 Annihilator 1 instead of a 2/2.
I like this. I want to be playing this in a couple more decks where it the power might matter, or it's just you do want that bigger body. I want to try this out. I think that this will be okay.
The thing that I think will matter about this card a lot is the mana value. Casting it for its evoke cost still counts as casting a 7 mana spell. So that could trigger a bunch of different stuff. And I think Null Drifter is just a solid card. It feels like a B.
Yeah,
right
I can
in
see
this,
that B.
Right in this range. One of the better Eldrazi that we've seen. But we get to move on to some legendary Eldrazi.
The big boys.
The ones you were probably waiting for when we started this. Harrogast, Erupting Nullkite, 9 mana 6/6, emerge 8. When you cast a spell, you can exile your hand to draw 3, and it is flying, and each creature spell you cast has emerge, and the emerge is equal to its mana value. So if I wanted to cast Meteor Golem, it now has emerge. I can sack a 4-drop to cast Meteor Golem for 3. And then, if I want to cast a 10-drop, I can sack Meteor Golem to reduce that thing by 7.
I like emerge a lot. I think it's a very cool mechanic. I'm happy to see they brought it back.
Yes, we're not talking about as a commander, but this card has plenty of applications not as a commander. I think it's just a pretty good card. It
If
feels
you
like
want sacrifice stuff, it's great.
Yeah, what we like it in a
Mid B?
mid B, yeah, middle of B. Maybe not as good as Null Drifter or the other one, but
if you care about sacrificing stuff, you already get some death triggers. You get some, you get some cost reduction. You can play out more of
Yeah.
your hand. You get some cards out of it.
right
This
here,
is great.
that's good. Okay, time for the big 3. Emrakul the World Anew, 12 mana, 12/12. When you cast this spell, gain control of all creatures target player controls, flying, protection from spells and from permanents that were cast this turn. When it leaves the battlefield, downside, sacrifice all creatures you control. And Madness, pay 6 colorless. We're not talking about this as a commander, so we can talk about it in whatever context we want. In the Eldrazi decks, very, very possible to Madness this out for 6 colorless.
I'm thinking about just in general, this is so hard to kill, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
once it gets onto the field. And I was thinking would I be playing this in a non-Eldrazi deck where it's like Selvala, for instance, where it's like I
Maybe,
have
yeah.
the mana to cast this. It will probably not die that easily, and then I also get a bunch of creatures, but the only downside is if someone figures out a way to get rid of it, my entire board is wiped.
Right, your entire board is
I think I
wiped.
still might play this.
This card
juicy.
looks great.
This is juicy.
This looks pretty great. I think it's not just an Eldrazi card. I only meant to say that Eldrazi would love to play it for 6. It's very possible for them. Just as a big, giant, mono-green, stompy,
yeah, this
whatever,
is the top end.
big thing. The only thing you don't want to do is cheat this out without casting it, because then you just have downside and not much upside. So don't do that. But just cast it and just live the dream. Like, I think the worst downside too is like we'll walk through casting an Emrakul and having it die to like a Soul Shatter or something.
Yeah.
That would suck. But you're going to take all creatures from somebody with the best board, obviously, right?
Yes.
So you now have the most creatures. One person has no creatures, and 2 people have the medium amount of creatures. They don't have the most
And
creatures.
the medium quality of creatures,
So
too.
if Emrakul dies, you lose all your stuff. But now 2 players are empty boarded, and then 2 players have not the best board because otherwise you would have stolen their stuff. So it doesn't even seem like a disaster if you steal somebody's stuff and then it's soul shattered. That board wipes somebody.
I'm
That board
gonna
wipes you and
put
them.
this at the top end and see how I like it in Selvala. I think this is going to be nutty, though.
I don't think it's S.
No.
I think we're in A.
I think it's going to be bottom of A.
It looks like a really good top end, totally playable card. I could absolutely see why people want to play this. Next up, another card that reads a little bit like a fever dream. It's Kozilek, the Broken Reality, 9 mana, 9/9. When you cast a spell, 2 players manifest 2 cards from their hand as
Could be
2/2s, and other colorless creatures you control get +3/+2. But the best part is, for each of those manifested cards, you draw a card. So we're looking at 9 mana, 9/9, draw 4 cards, create 19 power because you have 2 5/4s and 1 9/9 for 9 mana, and you drew 4 cards. Like, what is happening?
This is a great card. I am higher on this card than I am Emrakul because I want to put this in all of my little itty bitty Thopter deck, you know? I have a bunch of 1/1s, but now they have this giant boost if I can get to this because it's as colorless creatures.
And the other thing, too, is you're also mind-rotting people. You mind-rot 2 opponents. They lose those cards. They're now 2/2s. They have to decide which of their cards they can afford to put down as a 2/2, and they don't get the cast trigger. They don't get the ETBs. They don't get the spell if it's an instant or sorcery. They can't use it. It's basically discard 2. You just reap the benefits, draw 4, and this is like the static is an overrun. It's +3/+2. You could just win the game just from casting this. Forget the first part if you don't want to give them blockers and just overrun them. This card seems so
This is good. I mean, this goes in any deck where you have a large amount of colorless creatures, whether that's tokens, whether that's Eldrazi, or anything in between.
Yeah, like anything. This card
I think this
sick.
is great. I think this can go in A, and I think this is mid to high A.
Better than Emrakul, right? Just to clarify.
I do think it's better than Emrakul. I think it has more applicable, you know.
Because it's also the cheapest of any of the Eldrazi Titans ever printed. It's 9 mana, which is so much more castable than something that's like 13 mana.
Yeah, and especially if you can chain a bunch of little artifacts into it. You know, it's like the Soul Rings and the Worn Power Stones. And it's like, oh, well, it's all colorless. I didn't need any pips to get here.
Mm-hmm. I think what they did was they tried to make all these Eldrazi a little bit cheaper than they normally would be. That might not be true of our next one, though. Ulamog is still 10 mana.
He's big.
But this card reads like a fever dream as well. When you cast the spell, target opponent exiles half their deck. Round it up. Ward sacrifice 2 permanents. They put Annihilator on the ward cost, basically. He enters with X counters, where X is the highest mana value card in exile. Hitting half of someone's deck and you getting a choice to pick the person with the beefiest things probably means you're going to get 7 to 8 counters on him. What does that mean? Well, it means he has Annihilator 7 or 8. Okay. The thing about Ulamog is that he doesn't remove anything like with his previous incarnations. So there's plenty of chances for Ulamog to enter, die, and accomplish very little other than nuking half of someone's deck, although I don't think that's going to lead to mill or anything. But if this thing attacks, it is game over.
Yeah.
Annihilator 4 is game over. Annihilator 8 is definitely game over.
And this can be Annihilator 10, 12,
It could be,
whatever,
yeah, for
really.
sure.
Because its base power is already 7, and that's plus X. There's people
Well,
running around with 8,
you can also
10
put counters on this for other reasons. If you just put 3 counters on it, that's an extra Annihilator 3.
This is disgusting. I'm excited to see this play. This is so gross.
I think it's actually kind of mediocre without haste, but with haste, it is.
Well, I'm thinking of it in Big Green Stompy.
Big Green Stompy or colorless ramp, that sort of thing. This is a card you could cheat out. It'll still be really hard to kill, And if you can put counters on it in some like artificial way without the cast trigger, or actually, if opponent just have something in exile, like if you just Bajuka Bog somebody, you can reanimate this thing. It'll still get those counters, and then it still has Annihilator a bunch. Or you can put the counters on yourself. So like, that's pretty interesting. If this has haste, it is the scariest Eldrazi Titan, period.
Does it say on it the biggest thing in exile, or is it the biggest thing your opponents control in exile?
It's a number of counters equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile for any reason.
Okay, I was just thinking as like if someone like you had what's it called? You had a big Eldrazi Titan and someone had like, Swords to Plowshares it, and you just have this giant lurking thing in your exile pile.
I'm thinking, what if you just Gemstone Cavern something?
Yeah.
Or what if you Ugin's Labyrinth a card that you're going to get back, and it's like, cool, Ulamog has 10 counters on it. You're dead.
Or if you could like flicker something or something, exile it, return it at the beginning of the next end step, one of those.
Folks, pack your Soul Shatters because you're going to need them. You're going to need Flare of Malice as well. We'll talk about that one today very soon, actually.
I don't think this is better than Emrakul, but
You have it as worse than Emrakul.
I mean, I'm trying to think. It's like its best case scenario is way better than
very
Emrakul's,
true.
But also, there is the window where if you don't have haste, it could just sit and die.
Right. That's not really true with Kozilek or Emrakul because Emrakul steals somebody's things and Kozilek draws you 4 cards and possibly
so like it has higher highs and lower lows, and I think that equals out to about worse for me at least, but I don't know how you feel.
That feels right to me. That feels fair. I mean, they're all A's. They're all ridiculous.
They're good.
They all make
really
me want to
good.
throw up a little bit. They're all going to kill you if you let them untap with them. So I think that's pretty fair for the Titans. Let's go to Argent Deus. 2 mana, 2 oil counters. When 2 or more creatures attack, you get an oil counter. And you can pay 2 and remove 2 to basically exile something, and its controller draws 2. That kind of equates to you're going to be choosing the thing for yourself, and you're going to draw 2. I like that it gives you 2 oil counters automatically. That was what made some of the other oil counter cards bad. This feels like a white Aristocrats card.
Yeah.
But you also want to attack.
I don't know. I feel like there's so many hoops to jump through, and so I'm like, so I want to do this, but I also want to do this, and I think that equates to me not putting it in decks unless I really need card draw in some fashion.
Feels like a D level card. Let's get to the first Flare. Flare of Fortitude. 4 mana, you can sack a non-token white creature to pay its mana cost, so you cast it for free. And then your life total can't change this turn, and permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible.
I think this is one of the worst flares.
This is possibly
maybe
the
worst flare?
One of the worst ones. You can use it as emergency to save one of your creatures. You can save all of your creatures from some board wipes, not all of them. Tragic Arrogance, Psych Rift, Toxic Deluge won't work. It won't save them from them. Or you can use it as a fog. That's a lot of different modes on it, but I'm not really that excited about them.
I'm not excited about
the prospect of casting it for free with very little downside of sacking a white creature that's not a token could be good.
I think that bare minimum, you have to put all the free spells at like bottom of C bare minimum.
They're all
just because
strong.
It is just such a big opportunity to be casting these for free and just not keeping up any mana already. That's already just like bare minimum. You could play this in a fair amount of decks and I wouldn't judge you.
I think top of C maybe for this flare.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like free fog.
Yeah.
No.
Because we're not comparing.
Let's go bottom of B.
Okay. Because you're thinking about this and you're like, well, just free spells in general. It's like, I don't want to pay 4 mana for it, but everyone's got a creature.
Everyone's got creatures. That is very true. Next up, we are going to look at Guide of Souls. It's like a Soul Warden, but it also gives you an energy and a life. And if you attack, you can pay some energy to put counters on flying counters on something, and it becomes an angel. This is an energy card, finally, that it's very, very good in energy decks, one of the best energy payoffs ever. And it's playable in other decks like life gain decks. You can use the energy that you make just from this to get a nice other bonus, but you're really playing it because it gains you life.
Soul Warden, Soul Sisters in general are good, so of course I'm going to be putting this in like has a pretty big like breadth of decks it's covering. I
kind of like it.
I think this is a B card.
I kind of almost want to put it, okay, it's not an A card, but it is, I think, a solid B card.
I was like, yeah, if you're putting it in A, where are you putting it among the Eldrazi?
I got excited. Yeah, those are pretty intimidating. Let's move to Ocelot Pride. A lot of words. Basically, if you gain life, you get cats, and then if you have City's Blessing, you get an extra token. That's a copy of something. For each token that you've had enter this turn, it's pretty easy to get Ascend on 1-drops and little things, especially since it makes dudes. I don't think you have to play life gain. Like, it gives you a 1/1 if you gain life, but otherwise you could just play a weird token deck.
Yeah, I think this is a good card. I know this is spiking in price right now.
It's really cheap.
I can see why. I mean, it comes down really fast. You can play at any point in the game, and it's not dead if you're doing the thing that it wants you to do.
Right. It's also a 1-mana 1/1, and since it has lifelink, if nobody has blockers for the first couple turns and you drop this on turn 1, then you just get cats. Even if you're not a life gain deck, you can
I like this card a lot.
I think it might be... It's like top of B, or I'm thinking maybe even bottom of A or something like that.
I think it's bottom of A, but yeah.
It feels good.
I think that's good.
This is a good card.
I think it'll spiral way too fast.
Yeah, it could definitely spiral very quickly.
Because I was like looking at your copy thing, and I was looking at Oolong. I'm like, yeah, I think it's somewhere in between there.
Somewhere in between there. Pearl Ear. Imperial Advisor gives your enchantment spells affinity for auras. And when you cast an aura that targets a modified permanent you control, you draw a card. So obviously this is a great commander. But auras is a very wide net, and it goes all across like Bant colors. And so this is a very good card in the 99 as well.
I like this. I mean, it's just another thing for Enchantress decks to draw a card for.
It's another way for Enchantress decks to draw cards.
But it's good. It's like a solid 3-drop for those decks, and it also has like it has good stats.
Lifelink's
it has
relevant.
lifelink, and then also just a reduction.
So like a B then. You think probably a solid B. I feel like it's right around here.
Yeah, this is good for your auras deck space.
That feels good to me. We have to like scroll now because we're starting to get the chunky tier list where we have so many cards to talk about. Philia. Philia attacks and exiles one other non-land permanent at the beginning of your end step. Return it to the battlefield. If it entered under your control, you get a +1/+1 counter on it. So you can mess with opponent's stuff. Or like, I don't know, generic flicker card. This does not read very exciting to me.
I wish this is going to be higher because this is such a cute card. I love corgis. However, this is fine.
Yeah, shout out to Hammy, Nerd Girl's corgi. He's very, very cute. Yeah, this looks like a D, you said?
It's fine.
It's so
replaceable. It's
unbelievably
so okay.
So aggressively okay. White Orchid Phantom. First strike lifelink, flying first strike. When it enters the battlefield, destroy a non-basic land, and its controller can search for a basic land, put into play tapped, then shuffle. This is like the opposite. It doesn't ramp you, it doesn't de-ramp them. It just destroys one of their lands. I don't know. Are we going to be able to... This is nice on paper. Are we going to be able to find the slots in our deck to play this, though?
I was like, if you're not flickering it and just making sure everyone's utility lands are gone, are you playing Demo Field? Are you playing, like, those type of effects? Because
maybe a blink
are you playing Strip Mine? Like... Because if you're not aiming to do that in other parts, I'm not sure why you'd put it on a body and do it there if you're not flickering it and it's just a one-time effect for you.
Yeah, this looks okay. I feel like it's probably a C-level card.
I don't think it's a bad card.
I'm going to have trouble putting this in my deck.
Yeah, but also if I'm thinking of, if I have 101 cards, I'm looking for a card to cut, it's probably this one.
Yeah, because it's not going to really synergize with your deck unless you're Blink.
Yeah, it's not my game plan.
Right. I mean, if it's a Spirit. I guess it could go in some of those decks.
Maybe. That's still C tier.
Yeah, spirits are pretty...
Because I'm still not, like, 100% putting this in my spirit deck.
All right, Wrath of the Skies, easiest review of my life. It's an energy card. It's pretty okay. It destroys artifacts and enchantments as well, so it does wipe a lot of things. But you should probably not play this outside of energy. I mean, like, you can, right? This is a functional card. If I pay 8 mana, I destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment that costs 6 or less. That's just kind of expensive to me.
Yeah, I mean, when we have just all around board wipes, we have like Farewell for 6 mana to exile basically everything, or we just have the 4 mana Wrath, destroy all creatures. There's like, that's such a bad rate.
Vanquish the Horde is Wrath for 2,
yeah,
but in an
it's
energy
such a
deck,
bad rate.
In an energy deck, when you don't have to fart around with paying anything into X, you can pay white, have some energy on the side, say I'll pay 5 or 6 energy, and just destroy people for like almost no mana.
Yeah, it's such a situational thing. I'm playing this in any energy deck with white that I can, and I'm not playing this ever anywhere else.
Yeah, probably not. Although it is worth noting that it's kind of functional elsewhere. Amphibian Downpour, it turns something into a frog, and it's got Storm, so you can nuke a couple creatures. I just don't love this.
I don't know.
Turning things into 1/1s. I mean, it does shut down commanders. It is worth noting that if somebody plays 2 spells, you can shut down everyone else's commanders and make them do nothing. I want to hate this card. I think I just don't like the art. But realistically, it's probably a card I should try out because it could be very annoying.
I don't think it's a bad card. I don't think it's a great card, though.
So Mrs. No Opinion. Where would you put it?
I think it's bottom of C. I think it's like maybe bottom of C because I don't think I'm going to be putting this in a deck. But with Storm, that's pretty powerful, especially if someone is chaining Mishra's baubles like Beezy.
What do you mean? I don't ever do that.
And especially since you can lock things down, that's a little bit nastier than, that's why we love playing like Kendra's Transformation also. But this doesn't draw a card, which makes it a little sad.
All right, I got to hand the phone to you now because You might know this card.
This is my boy.
I hate this thing.
This is Dreamtide Whale. It is 3 mana for a 7/5 with a Vanishing 2. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, proliferate. That is any player, and you can proliferate your Vanishing counter so it sticks around longer. This is a big boy. Swinging him for 7 with 3 mana. This is going in my Poison deck. It's going to be nasty. I'm very excited. If you can put counters on things, or if you want counters on things and you just care about proliferate, this should be in your deck.
Simic value, like +1 counters or whatever, I think is probably the next best home for this, but the scariest home is Poison. This is so much proliferating. It almost feels like you can't cast 2 spells if you have a poison counter, because you're just gonna die. Like there's no way I would ever cast 2 spells.
Whenever a player casts it, especially if you have like a lot of little instants. I have a bunch of little instants that just say proliferate. It's like a 1 mana, and so if I pass with this and someone casts 2 spells and then I just cast 2 spells, that's already more proliferate. Like because it's just each player casts each turn.
So if you have if you have 4 spells to cast, you can cast 2 on your turn, trigger it. Go to the next person. They could cast 2 on their turn, trigger it, and you could cast 2 on that same player's turn to trigger it.
Yes, it does not say once per turn.
I hate it here. Where would you want to put it?
I think this is I think it's a B.
It has to be in B because we were saying it's already like busted levels in poison decks, and it goes in so many more decks than that.
Yeah, I think
that's just where it's the scariest.
Yeah, I think it's like a great B card.
Ooh, okay. Next one.
Oh, this is a good one. Flare of Denial, 3 mana, but you can sack a non-token blue creature rather than paying it and just counter target spell. Nice and easy. This is a great card.
It's a free blue
This
counterspell.
is a free blue counterspell.
Blue has the hardest time putting non-token blue creatures into play, but you still have them and you know about them when you're building your deck, like Yuriko decks. There's plenty of decks that have those blue little stupid flyers in play that they're happy to sacrifice later. I'm so scared of this card. This has got to be an S, right? First,
I think
second
that
S?
this is S, yeah.
Yeah, I think we got our second S. It's just like
It's so
card.
good.
This card. You think it's better or worse than the Reflecting Pool?
Worse.
Worse? Okay, yeah.
Because I think Reflecting Pool can go into a big variety of decks, but this is like you need non-token blue creatures. Or you're paying 3 mana for a counterspell, which I guess is also fun.
That bailout is not bad to have either.
Yeah, because it's not like, it's not like where it's like, oh, Force of Will is 5 mana if you can't exile a blue card.
This is fairly costed if you have to cast it.
It's okay.
What a great card. It's okay. It's an S tier.
it's
okay.
Above
everything.
It's an okay S tier card. Harbinger of the Seas, 1 blue for a 2/2 non-basic lands or islands.
How good is Magus of the Moon?
It's right? Annoying.
Like it's pretty good. It can be disruptive, but it oftentimes can die without having a ton of impact.
Yeah. I consider these cards annoying, but I don't think I consider them great.
I think it's probably a B level. It can shut people out of the game for sure.
And you could put it in a variety of decks, but like because it's a merfolk.
It asks nothing of you. So you can put it in any deck. It's like a hate bear.
If you care about Islands Matters, perhaps there's a lot of blue things.
I think you just play Islands at that point.
Yeah.
That's like a little bit too many hoops to jump through.
Shadow of the Second Sun, 4 blue for an enchantment. At the beginning of enchanted players' post-combat main phase, there's an additional beginning phase after this phase.
Now we get to run back one of our favorite, most misunderstood Magic cards of all time.
Sphinx of the Second Sun.
Sphinx of the Second Sun. When do you get your beginning phase, Mia?
After your second main phase, which means you cannot cast sorceries.
You cannot cast sorceries or creatures
that do not have flash or anything
after you get your little untap, upkeep, draw. Your turn is going to go untap, upkeep, draw, main phase 1, combat, main phase 2, untap, upkeep, draw, end step. It's over. This basically gives you, it untaps all your lands. If you have a lot of instants, it can equate to take an extra turn, and it's a little bit harder to kill than the Sphinx because it's an enchantment. I like this card.
Yeah, 6 mana is a lot, but
it's cheaper than Sphinx at least.
Yeah, but you're paying a premium for that to begin with, so
right.
And then also nice the Obeka players want it, and you want
extra upkeeps too. That's even the janky decks want it. Yeah, I think it's a B. It seems like a really solid card. You can kind of put it almost anywhere. Bare minimum, it makes you the monarch and untaps all your lands.
Strict Serenade. A single blue mana for counter target artifact, creature, or planeswalker spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 bird.
So it's the reverse of
Swan Song,
and they even made it Strict Serenade. There's so many references in this set, like Null Drifter and all that stuff. There's probably like 50 of them.
I think
this seems like it hits a worse variety of spells.
Yeah, because if I'm keeping up that 1 mana, I don't know. I'm still not angry to play this at cheap interaction, especially if my meta is very artifact or creature heavy.
Right.
But I'm just like not even looking at the planeswalker part because that's not relevant for the most part. Yeah. And the things I'm usually most scared about though are instants and sorceries.
So if Swan Song came out,
yes,
And like
I do like Swan Song.
If Swan Song was in this tier list, where would you put? Is Swan Song an S card or is it an A card?
Bottom of S, maybe.
Bottom of S. So if this is slightly worse than Swan Song, do we want to put it at top of A?
Sure.
Top of A for now?
Yeah.
Tentatively, it could be an S card going forward.
I mean, this is a great rate for it, at least.
It is, yeah.
And it hits a wide variety of things, and there are a lot of artifacts and creatures I am scared of.
Artifacts creatures is a pretty big net.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to talk about Planeswalkers. Whatever.
Nope.
Ugin's Binding, 3 mana for an instant. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, mana value 7 or greater, you can exile this from your graveyard. When you do, return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. So this is a Psych Rift impression if this is in the graveyard and you can cast something big.
This is why the mana value of things like Null Drifter matters. Now you're casting a 7-drop for 3, and you get this effect. It's literally Psych Rift for free.
Yeah.
You just have to go through the trouble of casting this, which is kind of a bad card at first. But if you mill it or discard it, no, you don't. You just get a Psych Rift for free. What is happening?
This is nasty. I think that this is pretty specific, but you're putting this in any deck that you're running big things in, and you could put it in the graveyard.
Not even an Eldrazi specific. Don't think it is, because if you've got like Mere Battlespheres and stuff running around in your deck, as long as it's colorless, it's just nasty. I think the opportunity cost is so low. It definitely has to be an A.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to put it.
It's so dirty. This card is very, very good. I hope not to see it. Honestly, I really don't.
But if I do, I understand. It is a great card.
Seriously.
Volatile Storm Drake, 1 in a blue for 3/2, flying hexproof from activated and triggered abilities. When it ETBs, you exchange control of that and a target creature an opponent controls. If you do, you get 4 energy and you can sack the creature unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. So this could be just a kill spell, and they get a 3/2 and you get some energy. This could also be you steal someone's creature for less or more if you have a ton of energy lying around.
The higher power you get, the less it matters that you only get 4 energy. That steals most relevant creatures in a higher power thing. So I'm interested in this. Stealing a creature is obviously where you want to be. I don't think 2 mana destroy a creature, give them a 3/2, which is essentially what this is, without, if you steal a 6-drop and you don't have enough energy. I don't think that card's that great, but it is nice to have as a fail case, and you can always steal something pretty cheap. I think this card's good. I think it's maybe a B level, though.
Okay, I can see it at B.
Maybe like in this little pocket after the build-arounds, that kind of thing. What do we got next? This is just Chthonian Nightmare, right?
Chthonian Nightmare.
Gives you some energy, and then it's like Recurring Nightmare, but you need energy. So it's good with energy.
Bad everywhere else. But also,
this is another one.
Where am I playing the black energy deck? What commander? Tell me what commander I'm putting in a deck. I have at a deck that has black in it, and I'm also playing energy.
And it's like not just energy. You have to be playing graveyard stuff. So, maybe we'll ding it a little bit. We'll throw it in C tier.
Really? I was like, I might even put it in D.
Maybe I'm just thinking because it references such a busted card in Recurring Nightmare, which is banned in Commander, but it is not Recurring Nightmare. So let's get it into D and let's keep moving.
Another Crabomination, 6 mana for a 5/5, but you can emerge it from an artifact, 4/7. When ETBs, target opponent exiles the top card of their library, a card at random from their graveyard, and a card at random from their hand, and you can cast all of them without paying their mana, or you can cast one of them without paying their mana cost.
So they exile 3 things, and you get to get the best one?
Yeah, without paying its mana cost.
Emerge from artifact means the mana cost is deceptive, and it can be cast for pretty cheap. So, how do you feel? I think it's pretty good.
I think, if you're doing the steal your whole deck thing, then I'm probably going to be putting this in the Gonti decks.
But, as a card, this seems more like a artifact card to me than a steal your card.
Maybe. I think that the fact that it takes 3 is pretty nice. That casts a kind of wide variety. It's 1 from the hand, 1 from the top, and a random from the graveyard, which can get a little bit dicey, especially later in the game where you're going to be casting this.
It almost seems like your best option to hit a good card is from their hand, because they can't control the other 2. And they're going to try to give you the worst card from their hand, but if their hand is all gas, or you really need one of the cards in their hand and they don't know it, it could still be good.
I don't know. I love playing other people's stuff because I think it's fun, but that's never the
Feels like a C.
best thing.
It's like a solid C. I might want to move this knight down here.
Yeah.
Our tier list is so big that we now have to just scroll whenever we want to do anything. We'll hang out at the bottom and we'll
go from there.
We'll stay in touch with the S's and A tiers.
Emperor of Bones, 1 in black for a 2/2. Begin combat your turn. Exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If you pay 1 in a black, you could adapt 2. And when you put counters on this, put a creature exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control. Gains haste, and you sack at the beginning of the next end step.
Black counters card. Green-black is a very common counters archetype, so putting counters on this over and over and over, as long as it stays out for enough turns, seems kind of viable.
Yeah, especially since you exile at the beginning of combat your turn. You could get something pretty nice, especially if you can mill other people or yourself and just pretty juicy, because it's a card from a graveyard. It's not your graveyard. So if someone milled something very juicy, you might be able to snipe it.
Yeah, it feels like another C. I don't think you're going to see this card a lot, but I don't
No.
think it's a bad card either. Next up, we got Necro Dominance. This is the impression of Necropotence. It changes around a few things, like your hand size is 5 and you draw all the cards at once. Basically, it's the same. Other than that, I don't know how this isn't an S tier card.
This is a great card.
It just looks like it's going to end games, and it's kind of busted, and you start with 40 life. And I had always thought that Necropotence was one of the cards I could easily see banned in Commander. But now that there's 2 of them, I somehow care less. It's just like hard. We have to police ourselves.
Yeah, this is slightly worse than Necropotence, but the slightly worse still means very, very good.
Slightly worse still means you're going to lose to it. This card is unbelievable. It's probably the best card so far.
Is it?
You can put this in any deck,
Yeah.
period. No restrictions.
Except
play it.
play black.
I guess the only restriction you might want is to be able to close the game out with 5 cards. I think most decks can do that. If your hand size is 5, you being able to still win, I think that's still very doable.
Netherglyph, black mana for the Goyf things. It is equal to the number of cards among graveyards +1, but you can escape it too if you exile any number of other cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them.
This is Tarmogoyf with no frills. The other ones were giving us frills that were tailored towards multiplayer. This is tailored towards single player, and as a result, I think it sucks.
Poop.
It's poop or D. It's basically a vanilla creature. We don't play those. Let's just put it in poop tier.
Next is then Black Flare, Flare of Malice. 4 mana, but you can sack a non-token black creature, which you probably want to do in black anyways.
It's extremely easy.
Each opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker with the greatest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. This is a great card. You're going to want to do it in black. I think this can go in S.
I think Soul Shatter is silly. It's very, very good. I've been happy with it. I add it to every deck I can. And
Doing it for free?
Doing it for free while sacrificing a creature that you almost guaranteed would rather have dead anyway because you're black. This card is a 3-for-1, but it's 0 mana, and it's not like some of the other cards you have to pitch a card from your hand. You just have to play the game, and the creature that you have to remove is sacrificed. It goes to the graveyard. That's where you want it.
You're in black.
I'm
You
gonna
want
play
it there
so
anyways.
much of this card, it's obscene. I promise you, if you see me and you play a game against me, and I'm playing black, it's in my deck.
This is great. I'm excited to play this.
Unbelievable card.
Next is Ripples of Undeath, 1 in black for an enchantment. Beginning of your pre-combat main phase, mill 3. Then you can pay 1 and 3 life. If you do, you take a card from among those cards into your hand.
So it's kind of like a Phyrexian Arena, but you got to pay more life, but you also have to want to mill. This card does not jump off the page to me. I don't know. Something about it. Like, if you're a heavy creature deck and you want to mill a lot, then you don't want to put your card draw and mill on enchantments. It doesn't fuel the rest of your strategy. I want that all to be creatures. I don't think I'm hurting for this type of effect. I feel like this is a card I'm just never going to play.
Yeah, it seems pretty mid in every aspect,
It's a card
which
I'm gonna
means
cut,
it's not
yeah.
making the cut.
It's a card that if somebody submitted me a deck that was like, this is my graveyard deck, and they wanted it audited, like you can have on Patreon. Check it out. I'm not going to keep this card in. I'm just going to cut it. But you know what? Probably I wouldn't cut.
Moxfield.com, the best place online to build a deck.
They thought that Moxfield was going to be in the tier list again, but it wasn't, and we bamboozled you. Moxfield is how we do our deck audits. I wouldn't trust any other deck site to do it, and that's not. They don't even sponsor deck audits. We just have to figure out what's the most efficient way to copy someone's deck and then scroll through the cards in an efficient manner and cut the ones that I think are bad and add the ones that I think are good. Moxfield.com, the user interface is great.
They help with the channel, and they're just amazing to build decks on, so go check it out. Go check out our profile.
And we're going to check out Shilgengar. He sacrifices angels to make blood, and it's actually pretty cool. It's great that he has the black-white color identity, right?
Yeah.
And he can reanimate a lot of dudes.
Yeah, there is just the finality counters I don't care about because the vampire part maybe I care about, but it's just I think this has a lot of opportunity built into him.
If you play Mill and you play Angels, which is what it reanimates, right?
Yeah.
This is Living Death. It just gives you, 3 mana Living Death?
Well, yeah, I was like, yeah, that's what I was talking about. I
You
was
just
like,
get all your creatures back. How do you lose?
yeah. Plus, just I feel there's so many ways to make blood tokens in just
Even
black in
on this
general.
card, you don't even need any other ways. This card looks
This is awesome.
silly, but we have to remember
But
that
that's as a commander. In the 99, though.
we have to remember that this can only go in black-white Angels decks. I guess there are black-white Angels decks. There's plenty of Lyasas that exist, so this is a shoe-in for those. But there's so few and far between that maybe I want to downgrade this to like C tier. Just know that when you see it, it's very, very scary.
Yeah, it's like the C-, but in the right place. It's great.
Warren Soul Trader's next?
Yeah.
What is this card?
3 mana for a 3/3. If you pay 1 life and sack another creature, you create a treasure token. That's great.
This card, it looks busted. It looks like a combo machine. It looks like you have to try not to combo with this. They offset the fact that you can't just go infinite by making you pay a life. Fine. Throw in a Blood Artist. Now you're going infinite still. And, it works with Gravecrawler things. There's a lot of Nether Trader things you can do. But it also makes treasure tokens. So if you're doubling tokens in some way, now it makes like positive mana every time. And we're getting to...
This is A tier.
This looks like maybe S tier.
Really?
In the sense that it doesn't go in every deck, but it's one of the single scariest cards in every deck it'll go in. So I'm not sure.
That doesn't... I was like, S tier to me is this can go in any deck, basically. And because of that, I want to put it in top of A.
Let's put it in top of A. It's so strong. This card does very silly things. I never thought that we would get like a free Phyrexian Altar version like Sackhellet again.
I like this card.
And even more so than Phyrexian Altar, this also puts more permanents in play. It makes permanents leave and it makes artifacts enter. It's just, come on. What is going on with that card?
Next is Aether Revolt, 4 mana for enchantment. As long as a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or a permanent they control, it deals that +2 instead. And whenever you get 1 or more energy, it deals that much damage to any target.
So this doesn't have to just be an energy card. I like this because this is that sweet spot we were talking about where you might want the first text and the sign of energy can mean that it'll go in more than just energy decks. +2, I don't think that's the best bonus. Like, I'm happy this card exists, but I don't think it's great.
I mean, it's like, are you playing Torbrand? Maybe you want that.
Maybe. It's just another one of those damage increasers.
Plus type deals.
Maybe just like a C-level card.
Yeah.
Totally fair.
Ashling. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, what do we got next?
Ashling, Flame Dancer, 4 mana for 4/4. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, you discard a card, draw a card. If it's the second time this is resolved this turn, it deals 2 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. If it's the third time, you add 4 mana. This is so much. You just want to be chaining a bunch of instants or sorceries to get all of the abilities.
At first glance, you might think this is a commander and nothing else, but nope. Magecraft is a Spellslinger archetype. You just throw this in a Spellslinger deck. And all you got to do is cast 2 instants and sorceries, and you get to Pyroclasm everybody, and you just get to keep doing it. Like, as Ashling resets, you just get to keep making that happen.
Especially if you can flicker this or something.
And then it's a ritual. The last one is F4 red mana, right?
Yeah, and then you don't lose it either.
So you can save it up if you want to for, like, a big turn, or even pair it with other rituals. You can go, like, End Step Seething Song, get mana, store it for this turn, and then just fire it off. I
think this is a great card.
This card's awesome. I mean, I think it's probably a B.
I think this is a B.
But it's a really, really cool card, and I'm glad that it goes in other decks, because I just think back to the first Ashling, and she doesn't do anything except be her own commander.
Detective's Phoenix, 3 mana for 2/2, but you could bestow it and you collect some evidence. And Flying Haste, and if the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 is Flying and Haste, and you could cast it from your graveyard.
So you can cast the Phoenix from your graveyard?
Yeah, which all
I don't
Phoenixes.
know. Like, what am I playing this in? I don't know. I don't understand.
I don't want to be playing Red Enchantment.
But, like, I just don't understand. Like, what deck does this go in? I don't get it.
I don't know.
Maybe we just stick it in D tier.
Yeah.
Someone will be happy with it.
Yeah, maybe you guys will tell us
Just
what
not us.
decks it goes in. Eldrazi
Just
Line
not us.
Breaker, 1 colorless red for a 3/3. Devoid trample at the beginning of combat on your turn. Target creature you control gains haste +X+0, where X is the number of Eldrazi you control. So it gives haste every single time this is out.
It does always give haste, so it doesn't necessarily
And
matter.
+1.
It doesn't matter if you're playing no Eldrazi, it still does something. I think that text is kind of below rate. Or, well, it's just not that exciting, right? Like, for 3 mana, you might just want to play some enchantment that gives all your stuff haste, or all your creatures haste permanently. So I'm not in love with it. I do appreciate that it's not just an Eldrazi-specific card, but I don't think I'm going to play it very often. It's probably a D, right?
Yeah, it's playable, but not that playable.
Look at all the Boros cards we have in D tier.
That's so sad. I love Boros
Sorry,
so much.
Boros. Okay.
Yeah, Flare of Duplication is up next.
Ah, the red flare.
Yeah, red flare. 3 mana, but you could sack a non-token red creature and copy target instant or sorcery spell. You could choose new targets for it. I like this a lot.
This card, I think, is actually going to be pretty good because one of the things that's been lurking in the background that is an infinite combo that red-blue decks have access to is the copy a spell infinite times. What is required is a spell in the stack. You then cast something that copies it. So now this spell is on the stack targeting the initial spell. Then what you want to do is play a second copy spell now that the first one is still on the stack targeting the original spell, which doesn't matter. The second copy spell targets the first copy, which now creates an infinite chain of copies that target the previous copy, which triggers Magecraft infinite times. And now that there's a way to copy a spell for free, this seems like a much more doable and scary way to win the game, or even just get a bunch of advantage.
I think that this is a great card. Do I think it goes into every deck like the
No.
blue and black one? No. But, like, do I think this could be mid-top of A? Yes.
I think so too. I mean, I wasn't expecting the red one to be any good because red always gets screwed out of cycles.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think-
happy. I'm pleasantly surprised to see this.
Seems like a very playable card. I'm pretty happy with it. That's a nice text box to change the evaluation of based on the mana value. It's like, oh, I don't play Reverberate, but would I play it if it was free? Well, let me check my red creature count because that might be interesting.
I think you could find a lot of creatures you're willing to sacrifice for free Reverberate.
Oh, yeah.
Party Thrasher, 1 and a red for a 1/4. Non-creature spells you cast from exile have Convoke. Beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you could discard a card. If you do, you exile the top 2 of your library, you choose one of them, and you can play it this turn.
So you have to wait a turn to get this going, but it's only 2 mana, and it's red card draw? This seems like I don't even care about anything else this card is telling me. It looks like red card draw. They're giving red card draw in Commander. This is going to be just a card you play in every red deck, right? Like every red deck that doesn't have access to a better card draw color.
I mean, yes, but also I'm thinking about the fact that non-creature spells from exile have Convoke.
It's even better.
So if you're making a lot of little paltry tokens or something, and you have like maybe an X spell or just something that's like pretty big, you put into exile because you're not getting real card draw, or you just have something like Prosper or whatever, and it just gives all of that Convoke. That's sick.
Looks like an A to me.
I think that this can go an A.
Especially considering the color it's in, which has so much trouble drawing cards. We did it. We have red card draw. Like, get ready to see more of this in the future. Red might not be the worst color in Commander in 2 years.
I'm very excited for that. I love red in my heart, but not on paper.
Not on paper.
I wish I could love it on paper. Power Bounce, red for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you could reveal the top card of your library. If you do, you could cast that card without paying its mana cost if the 2 spells have the same mana value.
Interesting. A little unreliable. Counterbalance is not very good in Commander. That counters the spell. This just gives you one of your own spells, not really related to this. Like, you can't stop the spell. It's on the stack. This one seems cute, but not good.
But how about timing restrictions and stuff, too?
Timing restrictions. You just cast it for free right away.
Okay, well,
it doesn't matter.
That makes it a little bit better.
Yeah, that is nice about the card. It does work, but man, you also need like maybe top deck manipulation.
Yeah, like a top type deal.
Right, but that's still not. You're not getting away with murder.
This is such a chance card. You know, fun but not good.
Well, here's the thing though. It's a red card, and Boros cards, as we all know,
are pretty mid.
They just go right into D tier.
Wheel of Potential, 3 mana, but you get 3 energy, and then you could pay X, and each player may exile their hands and draw X cards. If X is 7 or more, you can play those cards you own exile this way until the end of your next turn.
So you exile your hand.
Yeah.
And if you paid 7 energy or more, the cards you exiled are still fair game to play.
Until the end of your next turn.
Oh boy, this seems like a really good card in nothing.
Get it out of here.
Because now I'm thinking it's an energy card. But it's a wheel card, so you have to care about everybody wheeling. I'm not just going to throw a random wheel and give all my opponents 7 cards without preparing for it.
Yeah, like, also,
it seems terrible.
Would I pay 3 mana each player? It says may exile
they
their
don't even
hand
have
and draw
to.
X.
They can just be like, nah.
The choices makes it so bad because I was thinking, like, would I pay 3 mana everyone exiles their hand? Probably not. Would I do it if they have a choice? Definitely not.
Definitely not. This card looks like kind of bad. It looks really bad. I'm going to stick at the bottom of poop just to make a point.
I can't play this card, and I love my wheels.
Just to send a message. All right, I'll take the phone back. I'll get the next few of these. How about Birthing Ritual? It does birthing pod things on your end step, but it looks at the top 6 cards, right? Top 7 cards. So it gives you a nice little look at things. It is similar in speed to Birthing Pod because Birthing Pod is once per turn and can do it the turn you have it. It's kind of weird. I don't really know where I'd play this. I wouldn't play it in a super creature heavy deck necessarily because this is an enchantment. I guess you play it in the decks that you would play Birthing Pod in. You know what? Okay, toolbox decks. Decks where you have a bunch of creatures at different mana values that do different things. So you say, oh, I'm looking for an artifact removal. Well, with Birthing Pod at least you could find it. With this, it's like, I hope to see it. So this seems way worse than Birthing Pod to me.
I think, I was like, I feel like this could be powerful in 1v1,
totally
but not
fine.
Commander.
Yeah, it's just like totally okay.
Yeah, this isn't where
it's
I
honestly
making.
Be. I'm looking at this amphibian thing. I think we were a little hard on it.
Okay.
Look at that upgrade.
Okay.
And I think we were a little bit light on the spirit that I'm not going to play very often. Let's do this. Yeah, big shakeups in C tier. Okay.
This is the meta changing.
Eladamri's next, and he looks at the top card of your deck and casts creature spells from the top of your deck, which is nice. But you can also just tap him and 2 other creatures to reveal a card from your hand or the top of your deck and just put a creature from there in play. So it puts a creature from your hand into play or from on top of your deck. This can cheat out Eldrazi, monsters, whatever.
Those usually have cast triggers, so you might be like kind of negating those if you just toss something from your hand. But this is a really good card. This helps you cheat mana values. I want this card.
Here's the problem with Elvish Piper. I think Elvish Piper is borderline trash. I don't ever play it in a deck because the setup cost is high. I'm playing a 4 mana for nothing. I get a 1/1, and then I have to untap with it, and then I have to have a creature in my hand. But this guy, he gives you 3 mana 3/3. So the stats are better. I don't weight that heavily, but it is one upside. This says you can cast creature spells from top of your deck. So at baseline, it's a card advantage engine that does things when you don't have something to reveal. And it also looks at an extra part. It not just takes from your hand, but it takes from the top card of your deck. This card looks pretty cracked.
I mean,
and
this
I
also
want to clarify,
counts.
that Elvish Piper is not cracked.
Yeah,
It's
and
bad.
this is also just counts for your elf count too, if that matters to you.
To be fair, Elvish Piper does too, but you should still never play
Yeah, I
Elvish
was like,
Piper.
that's a little bit different, though. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, this is an elf, and it's a good elf. I think this might be... I want to say S, but I think realistically it's probably closer to A.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think it's S. I think
Any-
A is good.
any
Are elves
big-
back, boys?
This is not really an elf card. Well, maybe
I'm
it
just
is.
asking.
No, wait. Maybe it just is because you in the elf deck you lean more heavily towards I'm casting the top card of my deck
Yeah.
over and over versus I'm cheating out in Eldrazi.
I'm just asking them if
Elves
if
never
are
left.
back.
Elves has never left. One of the most popular commanders ever is an elf commander. Elves have been here. We love elves. We're here for elves. Fanatic of Ronus, what a weird card. If you got a 4-power creature, it's a 2 mana mana dark that just makes 4. It also internalizes, so it powers itself later in the game. This is so many steps better than like every mana dork I've ever seen that costs 2 mana that I think this is going to see a ton of play.
Yeah, bottom of S or maybe top
I
of
think
A.
it's just bottom of S. What does this card not do?
Yeah.
Like, it's not broken, but it's
it's
just a
good.
card that you just play in everything.
Yeah, if your creatures are big enough, which they probably will be, you're making a ton of mana.
But tapping for 4 mana is also relevant when we start talking about like Umbral Mantle and
untapped
like,
synergies and
the
stuff.
staffs and stuff. Where now that you're making so much mana off this, you can kind of go infinite with this. So I feel like it's got that late game juice where it can go infinite, but it's also just a 2 mana card that makes 1 in the early game, and then as soon as you play something good, it just
It has so much
explodes,
potential.
explodes.
Yeah, I think bottom of S is right.
Bottom
for
of
this.
S for that guy for sure. This one I'm really unsure of. Flare of Cultivation. People were saying this card is great. I think it might be one of the worst flares, if not the worst. The white one and this one are in contention, I think. Cultivate for free is nice sounding, but like, what are you sacking? Because people were saying, oh, I'm just going to sack a 1 mana mana dork. It's like, what? That doesn't even get you. It doesn't even feel like it gets you anywhere. I play a card that ramps me, and then I sack it so I can ramp. So now I'm even on ramp. I've ramped the same amount that I would have if I just left it alone.
No,
But I
this
have
is
I have an extra basic land in my hand.
Yeah, and this is just like a card slot for that too. If you just had the mana dork and you put another mana dork, you probably could have gone faster, I think.
Yeah, if somebody plays a mana dork and sacks it to Flare of Cultivation, I am not in any way going to be dazzled. Like, I'm just going to go, okay, that doesn't even
Yeah.
seem like it might have been the wrong play.
I feel like best case scenario, you tap your mana dork and then you sack it and then you cultivate, and that's still not good.
No, the best case scenario is you sack a creature that you want to die.
Yeah.
That doesn't make mana
no, I'm
because
just
you're
saying,
trying to
I
ramp.
was thinking like turn 1.
Yeah. It's like sacrificing a creature that is going to copy an instant or sorcery spell to cast the red flare. It's like, I don't know. So that's a little weird that the dinky green creatures usually don't align with this spell and wanting to cheat it out. So I'm just going to throw it in B.
Yeah.
It might be the worst flare, honestly.
I think this is the flare I'm least excited over.
Right. It is also a cultivate. So like this flare is the closest to wanting to hard cast it. It's not unreasonable to hard cast this if you don't have anything. So maybe for that reason it's slightly better than the white one, but I'm still not
I'm
super
not
sold on it
jazzed,
being a
yeah.
staple. Primal Prayers I'm just going to skip. It's an energy card. You need energy, and if you have a ton of energy, you can do like an Aloran impression. I don't even think it's good. And again, like you said, Mia, where are the green energy decks? Like, where are they?
Just tell me a commander that wants green and energy in the same
No,
sentence.
you know what? I've had it. I'm throwing
Put in
Primal
poop.
Prayers, and I'm throwing Cthulhu Nightmare in poop tier. I'm doing
Thank you.
Finally. It's happening. Okay?
Finally, you being like Cthulhu Nightmare is really good. I'm
But
like,
Recurring Nightmare? No.
no, these are two different cards.
These are
One's
two different
banned,
cards.
one's not for a reason.
All right, 6. The shortest creature name maybe ever. It's 3 mana for a 2/4, and it mills 3 and puts a land when it attacks. And if it's your turn, non-land permanents in your graveyard have retrace, so you can discard a land to cast them. Kind of seems really good.
Yeah,
me?
when I first read this, I was surprised that you didn't immediately start building it.
It attacks and draws a
I
card.
was like, this is graveyard stuff in mono
Yeah,
green.
It is. It cares about the graveyard.
Retrace.
It gives you a lot of stuff to do. I think this is just a solid card. I feel like it's a B.
Yeah.
I don't think like you want to be a deck that cares about lands or graveyard in some way. And once you do, it's just going to be a solid little workhorse, especially early game. It'll be very annoying early when you get a few free attacks in. We've got, look at this, folks. Look at how many we've still got to go. We're cruising.
This is a long video.
We're
Thank you for
cruising.
sticking with us.
We said it was the ultimate MH3 set review, and we proved it. Sowing Mycospawn. 4 mana, 3/3. It can exile a land or search for a land. The interesting part is the better thing, searching for a land, happens no matter what, even if you don't kick it. So I kind of like this as a 4 mana way to grab or any, any land that might be amazing that you have. And it doesn't matter that this is an Eldrazi. It's just a good card.
I mean, just what, a basic? What would you even find with this?
How about Field of the Dead?
Okay. Now you sold me.
Let's assume that it's
a land tutor for Field of the Dead.
No, this card seems pretty great to me.
It seems good.
I like that they made an Eldrazi because you can't really put an ETB on this. I think it's too abusable.
Yeah.
But on cast, it's great. And you can even cast it from your graveyard or something else or bounce it back to get more triggers. This card looks very good, and I probably will be playing it in a few of my decks.
Lowest of B, though?
Okay, fine. Where would you stick it in B here? Above the flares, possibly?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's put it above the flares. And we'll go to Springheart and Tuco. Remember Scoot Swarm? This is an aura that turns any creature into Scoot Swarm. So now when you play lands, you can pay 2 to copy the creature. And if you can't do that, you still get an insect. This is weird. I don't know where I'd play this. Decks with ETBs and stuff and creatures that you want to copy, but maybe I want big creatures. I don't know. It's cool. It gets the deck building juices flowing.
Yeah, I just built a landfall deck, and it's a budget one, and I don't think I had the budget for this just because of pre-release pricing and that sort. I still don't know if I want that in there, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Where are we at? Let's see, price-wise with this thing. It's like $5-ish right now.
On a $100 deck, it's not worth that.
No, definitely. It's a weird one. I think I want to put this in C.
Sure.
Because I'm not sure what we can do with it. And it seems okay.
Yeah.
It does not seem like a bad card.
It doesn't seem bad, but I also, I'm not jumping to put it in anything, and that should, I guess that really just tells you where
Yeah,
I
it
fall.
kind of does. Here, I'll move some stuff around accordingly. That seems better. Let's go to Thief of Existence. I had trouble reading this card because this has got a lot of words that I've read before. It's kind of like Skyclave Apparition, except when when this creature leaves the battlefield, they draw a card. Target opponent draws a card, not necessarily the same player. You can make friends with it. I don't know. It feels in that same Rex Sage territory, except I'm giving up something by not playing Rex Sage, and I don't know what I'm getting over this. You get Exile, I guess?
Yeah. Also, the waste in its casting cost makes it tough.
You're kind of right. Let's just throw this in D. I don't think anyone should really have to
play this over.
You shouldn't really be turning to this too much. I know it's not Boros, but we will put it in D tier anyway.
Yeah.
How about the next one? Because you like this card.
God. I was like, I don't even know what he's going to put in front of me.
You like this card.
Abstruse Appropriation. 2 an Orzhov for an instant. Exile target non-land permanent. You can cast it for as long as it remains exiled, and you can spend colorless mana as though it may have any color to cast the spell. I wish this was cheaper in terms of just the casting cost. I think it's really cool to exile something from somebody and then be able to cast it yourself, especially if they, but I think the fact that it is 4 mana makes it so that I will have a hard time playing this in a lot of decks. And I'm really sad about that because the art of some of it is really cool.
I feel like it's kind of a C. I can understand why you would play it, but it's a card that gets cut sometimes.
Yeah.
Let's throw it above Birthing Ritual, perhaps. And we're going to go to a couple legendary creatures, which I would imagine we're going to go through, honestly, quickly, because most of them are going to be their own deck.
Yeah. Arna Kenneran's Sky Captain. I think that's how you spell his name.
Close enough.
5 mana for a 4/4 flying lifelink. His ward is discard a card. Modified creatures. When they attack, double the number of each type of counters on it. Then for each non-token permanent that's attached to it, you create a token that's a copy of that permanent attached to that creature.
So extra auras, extra equipment. If you have an Esper Auras equipment counters deck, sure. This is its own deck, which is really cool.
But anywhere else?
I'm going to just kind of throw it in poop tier because I don't know where the heck you're supposed to play this. We'll put it with the other commanders.
Yeah. That's not a 99 card. Genku Future Shaper. 2 and Azorius for a 2/5. Non-token permanents leaving the battlefield. You choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You can create a bunch of creature tokens, and you can put 1/1 counters on each creature you control.
A little bit more playable in the 99. Leaving the battlefield is kind of weird. It seems like there's not a lot of decks that will care about that, but I think the fact that it's a functional card, at least a little bit, probably means we're closer to D tier. It's above some of these weird cards that I'm just like.
I could see it in the 99, but I don't think I will often see it in the 99.
This next one is a good card.
Imskeer Iron Eater, 6 in Rakdos for 5/5. Affinity for artifacts though, so he'll be cheaper.
Very cheap.
1 ETBs, you draw X, lose X, where X is half the number of artifacts you control, rounded down. If you pay 3 in a red, you sack an artifact. It deals damage equal to the sacked artifact's mana value to any target.
It's like a 2 mana 5/5 flyer that draws you 4 cards.
This is great. What
is going on?
This is great if you can just run it in your colors, and I think there are enough for the Brea decks. I think will really really like this.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a big difference between these 3-color legends and these 2-color legends. 3-color, it's like, okay, this or 5 colors or something else, but this is like, this can slot into Brea, it can slot into Grixis artifact decks, it can slot into Rakdos artifacts. It can fit into a lot of things, and I just think it's a pretty solid card. I feel like it's easily a B. Question is where? Probably, actually, you know what, with these other build-arounds, because if you're artifacts, you definitely want this card.
I don't know how I feel about this. Invert polarity, blue, blue, red for an instant. Choose target spell, then flip a coin. If you win, you gain control of it, and you can choose new targets. If you lose, counter it.
So we know that we don't like cancel. Cancel sucks. Yeah. I think most variations of cancel
and
suck.
Counterflux is hard to cast a lot of the time.
I think counterflux also sucks because it's cancel. But what if cancel had a 50% chance to steal the spell? Is that worth it? And I think maybe yes.
Okay.
That's huge depending on what happens.
Yeah, because I was first scared off by the casting cost and just the pips in general, but
I'm scared off that it's a 3-mana counter.
Yeah, it's just in general that's expensive and it might be harder to cast. However, stealing the spell.
I'm tempted. I'm really tempted. This one's a big head scratcher. Let's put it in the top of C because this card might end up being very strong, and it might also end up being in the realm of, you know, the pit of despair that all 3-mana counter spells go to.
Yeah.
At least in terms of what we play.
I want to see this in action. Definitely slot it into a deck so I can actually see how it plays.
Yeah.
If you like the number 2, then the next commander's for you. Kudo, King Among Bears, 2 mana for 2/2, and other creatures have base power and toughness 2/2 and are bears in addition to their other types.
Can we put Mia's Segway in F tier? Can we put it in poop tier? If you like the number 2, this commander, it's a bear. Anyway,
I don't know.
This is actually a pretty okay card. It just kind of shuts down like high power stuff, right? It keeps everything at the same level.
It gives everything base power 2/2, which is like kind of okay, especially if you can put counters on stuff.
Again, I have
your stuff is going to be bigger.
Again, I have no clue where to put this. Like, and what deck to put this in. It probably feels like another C. Like, yeah, it's like a hate bear, but hate bears are tough to slot in sometimes. Let's put it right here. Let's put it. Oh man, this next guy.
This next one, people are psyched for, and I can understand the hype.
It's.
Nadu, Winged Wisdom, 3 mana for 3/4 with flying creatures you control of. Whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, you put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. And I like how it says this ability triggers only twice each turn.
Only twice as much as you would expect it to. And
I thought I was going to say once.
That's the other thing is now you have to keep track. Not only if the creature has done it once, but if it's done it twice, and then like what he's supposed to do, turn it upside down. I don't know what's going on. This thing
it's gonna be nasty though.
Some like borderline combos, any sort of heroic strategy, even if you're just playing, I think, auras, putting counters on things, like this card is cracked in half.
If you can get that clever concealment going.
Yeah, if you can do something that targets any number of creatures without having to invest any extra mana in it. The only problem is this isn't as commander, it's as a 99 card. So auras decks, some kind of equipment, maybe if you have the Shuko in the deck for a different reason, counters decks could see like targeting it for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
This card's very good, but
it's not a 99 card for the most part.
It's tricky, yeah. I think even in 99, it's probably still like a C.
Okay.
Because it's just so silly.
I was like, as a commander, though, I'm so excited to see that.
As a commander, it's busted. I don't want to see anything from this guy. I don't want to see what he has to offer.
The next one is probably one of BZ's favorites because it's Abzan. It's the Necrobloom. 1 in Abzan for a 2/7. Whenever a land ETB is under your control, you create a plant. If you control 7 or more, you create a Field of the Dead token.
If it was create a Field of the Dead token.
It's a zombie token. Yeah. But like, I'm surprised you didn't start building this considering it's Abzan
it's
Field of the Dead onto it, and then lands in your graveyard have dredge too.
Multiple people have reached out to me saying, are you going to build this? It seems right up your alley.
It's just you.
I know you love Field of the Dead, and I'm like, honestly, this doesn't really speak to me, but I love this card still. Like, I guess. I'm not being spoken to in terms of building a deck, but I do love it, and I think the generic landfall synergy of it is nice. However, the 3 colors is rough, so I feel like this ends up in C tier. It's a very good card.
This is just the BZ card.
It is a BZ
card. I like
card.
how like
it's almost like they made me a Magic card.
Yeah.
And I'm still like, is it a land though? Feels that's broken. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like it's not a 6/6 like I like how I'm 6/6 so.
Field of the Dead is cracked, right?
I'm really excited because just in general in MH3 they reprinted Kalia and gave her some really sweet art, and then also just gave you Abzan Field of the Dead, which is just you.
I might do it. Flage is a Titan that lightning helixes. I think this card is bad, and there's almost nothing to do with it. So I'm just going to
don't
throw it
care.
in
Put it
like
in poop.
poop tier. It's barely removal.
Yeah.
It's just not that exciting.
What do you think about Psychic Frog? It's a 2-mana 1/2. If it deals combat damage, it draws a card. If you discard a card, you put counters on it. If you exile 3 cards from your graveyard, it gains flying. I don't think this is that good.
I think it's a discard outlet. I think it's an okay discard outlet. It can draw you cards. I think it's really like a D, but I love this card. I appreciate what they're doing with it. I might play it somewhere. I might play it in Oscar because it's pushed. It's pushed. It's just, do decks want this? Not really.
I don't think so. Rasheen, Roaring Prophet, 2 in red-green for a 4/4. ETBs, you mill 6, and you could take a card with X in mana value, put it into your hand. If you tap it, reveal a number of cards with X in their mana value into your hand. You add 2 colorless for each card revealed this way, but you can only use it on X spells.
I've already put it into D tier because you have to play some other X spell deck. Sure, if you have that other deck and it's also red-green, you're off to the races.
Here's a card that you're excited for.
But another card that was kind of made specifically for me, it feels like, is White of the Weliquawi.
White of the Weliquawi.
It's a 2/2. It gets +1/+1 for each creature in your graveyard, and you sack a creature to search for a land. So it finds Field of the Dead, first of all. Check. Box checked. And it's one of my... Night of the Reliquary is one of my favorite cards, partially because it finds Field of the Dead.
Sure, you know
But Sacrifice a Creature is so much different than Sacrifice a Forest or Plains, because now it's actual ramp. It's not just like land quality improvement. Card looks sick to me. I love it a lot. I think I might put it in a B. It feels like those landfall decks are going to love this thing. And those landfall decks have access to expendable creatures. Do you know why?
Why?
Field of the Dead. Field of the Dead.
I think this has a lot of homes. I'm probably not as psyched about it as Beezy is because Beezy talked about it the entire time. But I think it's a really good card. It does have, I think that this is great, especially at 2 mana. It's so cheap.
The Vigilance feels tacked on, and the +1/+1 feels tacked on. I didn't need that to make this card good, but it has it. Next up, we have Disruptor Flute, and I would read what Disruptor Flute does, but it kind of doesn't matter. Sorry, I'm still on the White of the Weliquawi. It just stops one specific card. It just seems terrible.
This isn't a commander card.
Yeah, just get out of here. Winter Moon. Oh boy, this looks fun. Players can't untap more than one of their non-basic lands, so we can take advantage of it as a monocolored player and make it so that all our stuff is fine and their stuff is screwed. It's not as backbreaking as Winter Moon. Sorry, as Winter Orb. It's not as backbreaking as Winter Orb. See, Wizards, when you just jumble around the same 5 words and make everything a reference to something else, I'm going to get the names wrong very frequently. So Winter Orb has a much more backbreaking effect, but Winter Moon feels like half or more of your lands are screwed, and none of mine are screwed. So it's very asymmetrical. It feels like
This
kind
isn't
of like
a
an
fun,
A, right?
Yeah, this isn't a fun card. This isn't a card that you make friends with. But if you're monocolored, this is great for you.
Gets the job done. This is an A card for sure. Let's
It's
put it
good.
like bottom of
And
A.
I'm angry to say it's good.
I don't like it. Oh, speaking of good, we've got a cycle of lands, and they are all basically free roll auto includes. If you're playing a monocolor deck or even a 2-color deck, Monumental Henge enters tapped unless you control planes. I'm going to read them all, and then we'll evaluate them all. They're all probably about as good as each other.
We have to do it one at a time, though.
Yeah, okay. You know what? Fine. This one, pay 4. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and you get a historic card from among them into your hand. So it's card draw on a land that almost always enters untapped. Feels like an A to me. This feels like a free roll, and I'm excited to put it in my monocolored Field of the Dead deck.
Yeah, I was like, why were you not putting these in S's? I'm just curious.
Oh, why am I? Oh, you know what? Okay, that's cheeky. Yeah, maybe they are S's. If they're auto includes,
They're free rolls for the most part, so why?
in many decks, yeah. And they're also good. They're also very good. We'll read them all. I bet they're all going in S, but we'll read them all. The blue one can give a spell Improvise, so
I think that's sick.
especially better in artifact decks. Maybe because this one's a little bit more specific. Nope, it's still just a free roll if you have artifacts in your deck and you've got non-artifact spells and you can use the artifacts to tap.
This
is
great.
Seems like kind of great. This is the best one though. I think the black one, Spymaster Vault.
I love this, the Connive one.
Oh, you want to read it or you want me to read it?
Okay,
The creature connives X, where X is the number of creatures that died this turn. This is a thing that happens all the time, whether there's board wipes or you're proactively doing it. I think that's the best one. Not close.
I think this is the best
Dear
one.
Lord, this card is good, and it's so easy to play. The red one can exert to tap for extra mana and give a creature haste. I still think that's pretty solid. The exerting and tapping for an extra mana means, I think that at least of the 4 we have here, it's the second best one because the amount of mana, even though you lose out on tapping this for mana next turn, you get an extra mana, so it doesn't really change. And having haste is just a nice bonus.
Yeah, I think that I was just thinking about the math of it, but I think it's not bad. I'm not sure if I'm as high on it as you, but it's still a free roll, so I'm still happy to have it.
Yeah, and then finally, Shifting Woodland, which can copy something.
I mean, this is sick.
In your
right?
graveyard. I don't know how sick this is. There's obviously, like, it's really good with Omniscience and all that sort of stuff of, like, some big thing. I just can't really think of exactly what I would want to do with it, but I am glad that they brought back Delirium. And of course, in the late game, just creating some big creatures with a static or a big creature with an attack trigger or an Eldrazi or something like that can be huge.
Yeah, I think if you're just playing a lot of mill in general, this just has a lot of opportunity and it's a free roll yet again. Green, you might be playing something graveyard late game. You're gonna have the Delirium in it.
We're just talking in
it's good.
Any 1 and 2 color deck. These are almost complete free rolls, and they should be played as such. Ugin's Labyrinth. You can exile a colorless card in your hand that costs 7 or more to make this just straight up tap for 2 mana, and you can always return the card to your hand later. The only question is, does your deck have enough of that stuff? Do you have enough 7 drops? When you only play 1 Ugin's Labyrinth, I don't know if the maths, but in colorless decks it's free because what's your worst case scenario? A land that taps for the same amount of mana as every other one of your lands? Like, this seems great.
Plus, Eldrazi are always so expensive in those colorless decks, so I think that this is a free roll in all of those.
Feels like a B because it's not a free roll in every deck, but it's a free roll in every colorless deck.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah, so it's like closer to the build-around score, but I think it's the top of the build-arounds at least.
Yeah, and we're rounding out with a Flashback Origins Planeswalkers. These are, I imagine, going to be okay. They're going to vary wildly depending on what they do. Ajani makes a 2/1 cat, and if it dies, it flips into a walker that puts counters on cats, creates a cat, and then deals damage to stuff if you have red permanents, or each opponent chooses an artifact, creature, enchantment, planeswalker, and sacrifices the rest. Kind of an okay wipe, so you could realistically get Ajani down +2 and then ultimate him next turn for like a nice board wipe, but he's really going to be under pressure.
I was like, you know the drill. He's Boros, which means he's the worst out of the 4.
Yeah.
But
well,
I wish he wasn't, but that is how it works.
He's also 2 mana for 2 creatures. There are some decks that want 2 mana for 2 creatures. That's not super easy to come by.
Yeah, that isn't a bad
I think that brings him to C.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of decks that he's got enough utility, enough little things going on.
I think C feels good, but I'm very sad to say that everything else will rank higher than
Yeah, probably. Next up is Tamio, who investigates every time she attacks, and then when you draw your 3rd card, you flip her, and she can shrink creatures that attack her, which is a pretty decent way to protect her. It's also a +2, and then she can return a thing to your hand. That's cool, and also add mana. And then when you draw cards equal to half the number of cards in your deck. If that happens, you win. Don't know how likely that is to happen, but she does +2, so she starts at 2. So the first turn she goes to 4, then 6, then 8, then ultimate. So it does require about 4 turns with her.
And she's
But
1
I think
mana.
even just bringing a spell back is nice, and the investment is 1 mana, and she's been investigating this entire time. So
Yeah.
it seems like a good card to me. Probably like a B range.
I think B.
It comes down early and it just does a lot. It puts permanents on the battlefield. We all know putting random crap in play is good for you, almost no matter what it is.
We
these
love
days.
putting random crap in play.
All right, Soren, you've got Extort, so I'm already interested. You could just keep.
I
this
just
in play,
built this deck.
Keep
so.
this in play and extort people. And if you gain 3 or more life, he flips into a boy. And he also has Extort on the backside, which is nice. He makes foods. He goes up to a decent chunk of loyalty. He can deal damage to stuff. And if you want to ultimate him, or maybe you get up enough turns and you just want to cash him in, you can steal a creature, which can be pretty backbreaking. I think the Extort on a cheap body is already kind of interesting.
The 2 mana Extort, it comes down really easily. You know, that's one of the reasons why I love like Blindo and stuff, because it just, you could bring it down turn 2 and then turn 3. It's just like you could start using your mana efficiently if your deck has enough like ways to just have cast cheap things.
I think this is also a C. It feels like
It's better than a Johnny though.
Yeah, the front side is better than a Johnny by miles, but the back side is like
It's
not
okay.
anything to write home about. At least a Johnny has a really cool ultimate. We go to Ral. He flips based on you flipping a coin. He makes your spells cheaper, so he is a Goblin Electromancer. Already pretty good, and you can choose not to flip him if you want. So you can always just keep him as an Electromancer. He's going to enter the battlefield with a loyalty for like your storm count. So if you get a big storm turn, you build him up, save him, and then flip him, possibly to hit his ultimate, which is exile the top 8 cards of your library, and you can cast them for free. That if they're instant sorceries, that's really, really cool. Or you can, give that same ability of Goblin Electromancer, or he can deal some damage and maybe draw a card. Ral seems sweet to me.
I love the versatility of this, because if you have a high storm count, that's great. You don't have to flip him if you don't want.
He's an
He comes down
Electromancer on the front
cheaply.
side.
I think that he checks off a lot of boxes.
I think Ral's a solid B. I'm going to be excited to play Ral. And he's not very expensive right now. So if you want to get a hold of another Electromancer effect, you should definitely consider Ral, he's pretty much all upside. We say the problem with Planeswalkers is they can be attacked, but most of these Planeswalker creatures, you can choose to flip them or not.
Yeah, that's just so nice to have. And I do like the fact that once you flip them to the backside, there usually is like a pretty good upside to it.
Yeah, so our final card here, and probably the worst of the Planeswalkers, is Grist. Grist wants things to enter from graveyards, and then it'll flip. And the flip side can destroy an artifact or enchantment, or make an insect and mill some cards. And then if you can ultimate it, that's great. The ultimate's insane. It's for each creature in your graveyard, you get a copy that's a 1/1. That would be really, really, really good. I just don't know how you're going to get there. I feel like Grist is kind of a D, but I do love Grist. Grist is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I was like, this is everyone's favorite Golgari Planeswalker, Grist.
We're bringing back all the favorites. Johnny, one of the first Planeswalkers ever. Ral, Sorin, Tameo, who's dead. You're never going to get another Tameo. And Grist. Not Garrick? Wait, what? Not even a Nissa? I guess they already did Nissa.
Yeah, I guess I misspoke when I was like, oh yeah,
poor
Boros
Grist
is going to be worse. But hey, I'm very happy to see that it's not a Boros card going into D this time. Honestly, no matter whether you're playing Modern or Commander, or if you just want to draft this set is amazing and has so many cool cards in it. You should go check it out if you get the chance.
Yeah, if you're looking to check out MH3 more, or just find an LGS to play at, you can check the link in the description. We got you covered. So we can review. We're going to do a quick little review here. We got our poop tier, mostly cards that are commanders of their own decks, or cards that just don't seem to function or have any homes at all. We've got our D tiers, other more specific commanders, but that are more playable and includable.
Or fun cards, but not necessarily powerful cards.
A lot of weird energy cards that don't make any sense at all, because they kind of botched the energy a little
Boros.
bit. Yeah, Boros cards. Let's go to the C tier. You've got solid playables, cards that I wouldn't really fault anybody for playing. A lot of some of the more lackluster build-arounds, or cards that I'm not sure about, honestly, like the first two in there. I think the Goyf's going to be cool. Eldritch Immunity is cool. The what is that? The Mana Rock white one, and the counterspell that maybe gains control. Those are all really cool cards. I just don't know. They could be B cards. In our Bs, we got some of the best build-arounds, some of the cards you're going to start seeing all over the place. Some lands, some pseudo free rolls depending on the deck, a Farewell Impersonator, and then the A's. Whew.
Nasty.
It might not look like there's a lot of them, but these cards are all obnoxious, and they're really, really strong, and you're going to see them a lot. They are very good, and I'm excited to play with all of them. And S tier, we got a lot of S tiers. 5 complete auto-includes in 50% of the decks they could go in. A Mana Dork that makes 4. A free Soul Shatter that the cost of casting it for free is sometimes an upside.
Yeah, sometimes you want to do that anyways.
It's so easy that it might be an upside. Another free blue counterspell, a Necropotence ripoff that's basically as good as Necropotence if you're trying to win the game that turn or next turn, and a land that kind of just is Reflecting Pool, but with more words on it.
Yeah, you could just draw and maybe put a land out.
Yeah, another huge thanks to Wizards for sponsoring this absolute monster of a tier list. Wizards, you're amazing. We couldn't do any of this stuff without you. We appreciate it. And we're so excited to be sponsored, right? This is just a big moment for the channel. We're really happy
We're
about
really,
it.
really excited. So thank you so much.
If you want to check out the most recent tier list that we made, it's right in front of your face, and all you got to do is click on it.